This is the Senate Education Committee, back after a tour of the school and lunch with students and teachers. That was a lot of fun. And we're back here at the White River Valley High School. We'll introduce the committee in a second. Just to say that we try to start all of these panels off with, what we're trying to do is take a little time we have before the session starts, when it's impossible to get out of the building, frankly, and get out and go to some districts around the state. We tried to identify districts that were all a little bit different than each other so that we get a different perspective with each visit. The overarching theme is providing excellent educational opportunity for every Vermont student. That's what we want to talk about. The challenges, the opportunities you see, the challenges you see, and what you're doing. And here we are, this school, we've chosen part of this district in part because we wanted to really focus on rural Vermont, as rural Vermont is trying to provide those same opportunities for kids that other schools are trying to do. So that's the sort of overarching theme. I'm Seth Baumgartz. I represent the Bennington Senate District in the Senate, and I'm chair of the Senate Education Committee. And over here on my left,
Steve Heffernan, Addison County District.
Keisha Ram Hinsdale, Chittenden County, and I taught for several years at the law school next door.
Good afternoon, Dave Weeks, representing Rutland County, and I live in Proctor.
Good afternoon, Terry Williams. I represent Rutland County, and I live in Poultney.
and just one more comment to make is each stop we've done a student panel like we did this morning, and a panel with teachers. Those are the two groups we don't get to hear from that much during the session. And so those students, obviously very close to the ground, teachers very close to the ground, that's what we're really, so this is one of the highlights of the trip, is I guess what I want to say. So we really look forward to hearing from you. We've had great interaction with teachers at other schools. So you're on, who's ever leading.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
My name is Brian Herrick. I am the school librarian at the Newton School in Stratford. It's a K-8 school. It's my second year there. I'm brand new, but it's my 31st year in education. So I'm a career educator. Being new to a place definitely allows you to see it in a different way and have an outsider lens, and I've been very grateful to step into the community and be welcomed and really see what rural schools look like. Also, being new, I felt like it was really important to get the information from my colleagues. So the documents that we put in front of you was something that I put together after using a survey at my own school. And that was very successful in getting their quotes and their perspectives. And then I did the same thing with my colleagues here. So there's a second document as well. And I think, you know, what you're going to see is some real through lines in there. Things like school is the heart of community, students who are known and seen, individualized, differentiated learning, relationships drive academic success, and local voice and choice. So I know there's a lot of text there, and I'm grateful if you take the time because I think that you really get the comments from the people who couldn't necessarily make it today.
Did you give a copy to the staff?
Absolutely.
Okay,
yep,
good.
I've got another copy here.
Then we'll post it.
And before I turn it over to my colleagues, I wouldn't be a librarian if I didn't bring it back to books. So I just have to read a very quick. If you haven't read Gather yet, in the words of Ken Cotto at the end, he says, "In my teaching career, I've encountered dozens upon dozens of stories like Ian's. Kids whose spirits are threatened to be crushed by societal disregard. The kids who are able to pull through by the ingenuity of their skill set and the strength of their character, as well as the care of their larger communities, are some of the strongest people I have ever had the pleasure of meeting." And I really think that sums up what rural schools and communities do for students. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lisa Dragon. Is this on? Yeah. Okay.
Just hold it close.
I'm Lisa Dragon. I'm a high school science teacher here at White River Valley High School. And as I was thinking about what to share with you today, I think it's important to mention that our high school was part of a voluntary merger with Act 46. So we joined with Bethel and really created a brand new school. And while I think both schools were doing really great things, I think we've done greater things together, even though it was a challenging process. one of the things I think that made that merger so successful is that there was an incredible amount of collaboration beforehand. We had, I don't know how many multitudes of committees involving students and parents and community members and teachers trying to get it right. And I think what we've built since then, I think we've really got right. And we have, I think the size high school that we have right now is really uniquely positioned to let us do what we value, right? So as I was thinking about what we really value, it's, we want to know every student well. I think everyone needs to be heard and seen and valued before they can be willing to take those academic and social risks that really result in growth and community. So the fact that we can get to know every student well, and I mean that both through personal relationships with kids, but also through the data. How do we really target our courses? How do we target our interventions and supports for them? How do we create those community structures that are going to help them? Really requires a pretty intimate knowledge of who our kids are, right? We really strive to create opportunities here that every kid can participate in. I came here from a much larger school district, and I remember coming here and thinking, well, there really aren't the cliques here I saw in a bigger school, and why is that? And it was because everybody was involved in everything. Theater kids played sports. Like, I didn't see that in bigger high schools where kids had to try out and maybe wouldn't get on a team or wouldn't get to participate. They really get to find out who they are through these opportunities. And I think we're flexible and can evolve. We've created many new courses, even in the last 5 years, to target what kids need. If they're struggling in math, we create a math course that's going to allow them to gain those skills, right? And then I think all in all, our focus on community is really about belonging. Like, they have to feel like they belong in a place. And I have my own student that just started at the middle school. I think would be a small middle school, would be relatively lost in a big school, right? So I think we have, at a time where a lot of students are experiencing a crazy world and a lot of anxiety and depression and struggling with social structures, having a place that they can go and be known and understood and supported has been really important for our kids. And it's not just about the community. We see this in our data. Like, I'm in the science department, and we are so proud. We're across the SU 12% above average for the state testing last year, which is just speaks to their hard work. And the kids say that it feels like a family being here. That feels good. You want to go every day. You want to attend. So, thank you.
Thank you. Hello? Okay. My name is Lindsay Schell. I'm a preschool teacher and preschool director at Sharon Elementary School. In my room, I have 3, 4, and 5-year-olds, so the littlest of the munchkins. Right now, we have Monday through Friday care, 8 to 3, so the full day, which is really wonderful. That helps us support families to offer that full school day. We also offer aftercare services, which are 3 to 5, which helps support our families. Okay, helps support our families even more. My primary goal with 3, 4, and 5-year-olds is to develop their social and emotional skills. And I do that through creating personal and authentic relationships with them. And when you create those personal, and authentic relationships, that really helps you to build the community. Being part of a community provides a sense of purpose and value. And I'm able to do that in a small rural school.
Hi, I'm Donna Gallant. I am a teacher and reading interventionist at the Rochester Stockbridge Unified District. So 2 schools, about 10, 12 miles apart. In a small school, a child is truly known by responding to academic strengths and challenges, teaching life skills, and providing emotional support. We continually adapt to meet each child's needs. At we call it RSUD for now. At RSUD, individualized reading and spelling assessments are given to our K through 3 students, so we can accurately determine exactly where each child is currently at instructionally and be able to provide direct instruction to speak to their explicit needs. And we thoughtfully form these reading groups and spelling groups, which in a small school allows us to be flexible where there may be a second grader that's really doing work closer on a third grade level and be able to have those children be able to be a part of a different classroom. So we're able to be incredibly flexible and nimble to respond to needs. We, of course, provide intervention as needed, but we also do something we call double dipping, which is when some students just need a little bit more practice at certain things like fluency or being able to practice words that they may have missed. We call it a goodbye list, so more accurately being able to read certain words. So all of us pitch in to be able to support students in that way. We know that science-based literacy instruction is essential and foundational for our students, so we take that extremely seriously and work really hard to give students what they need. And in a small school, we can also enjoy academically rich bonus literacy sort of activities, things like literacy in the woods or poetry jams or I love to read events with community members. We love to have books and bagels. We have that a few times a year, which supports our local businesses, bakeries in both towns that provide miniature-sized bagels, and we have families come in to read with students. So we really try to pull in the community as much as possible and be immediately responsive to what our students need and provide the extras as well.
Hi, I'm Mary Schell. I'm the Community School Coordinator for WRVSU. This is my 4th year. I'm just starting my 4th year in the position, and we were one of the 5 funded community schools in the first cohort from the Community School Act of 2021. I've spent 26 years in the high school classroom as a social studies teacher in 3 high schools in Vermont. And I was the director of an organization, Up for Learning, for 3 years. And I'd like to speak and share with you my perspective on community schools and the impact that potential consolidation might have on our efforts to, perfect timing, to grow our community connections. As a community school, we believe, and it is a belief system, that communities, not schools alone, are responsible for and responsive to the conditions necessary for children to thrive. Our community school model shifts from an inward, isolated model based on a finite amount of resources, teachers, buildings, budgets, class sizes, to one that sees and utilizes vast resources. Community members, including UVM intern expertise, intergenerational learning, and resources that reflect the people and the places that children know and where they live. Ultimately, as a community school, we are intentional about removing barriers to student and family engagement by utilizing local resources and building collaborative relationships with and between our community partners. This results in meaningful engagement where families and children can position themselves in a larger and deeper context. And both our schools and community members are provided with opportunities to be part of something bigger than themselves. Our intentional efforts are built one conversation at a time and one relationship at a time, while at the same time building systems so that we do not revert to an isolated and disconnected school model. Our community school effort provides an integrated system that finally facilitates the best of all of Vermont's aspirational education legislation and deep commitment to multi-tiered systems of support. We are grounded in the truth that learning and the well-being of our students, families, and communities cannot be separated. These relationships cannot simply move into a larger system without being weakened or lost. Protecting White River Valley Supervisory Union matters. It matters because strong schools build strong communities, because rural schools sustain Vermont's future, and because the choices we make now will shape rural Vermont far beyond my career and yours for decades to come. I urge the committee to recognize that rural schools are not duplicative structures. They are the backbone of rural communities. Consolidation risks unraveling the very ecosystems that allow children, families, and our communities to thrive, and that is our shared responsibility. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kylie Edwards. I'm a special educator at Bethel Elementary that is also in this district. So we are a joint school with South Royalton Elementary and Bethel Elementary. I had the pleasure years ago working here. I ran the alternative education program in the elementary level, and that serves students from across the supervisory union. Those were students that would have otherwise been placed out of district at an independent school in another community. But we had the opportunity to have those students here in our supervisory union, allowing them to stay connected to teachers who they already knew, specials teachers, so like the librarian, the music teacher. They maintained those connections. They maintain connections with their peers when they stay in their community. They still have access to maintaining those relationships, working on those relationships. One thing for me that was really important was having students stay here really contributes to their sense of belonging. When they're sent to an alternative school, an independent school out of their community, they don't always feel like they belong in their community still. And allowing them to stay here really gave them a sense of belonging. They were still part of our community. They were still part of White River Valley Supervisory Union. And students are ready to transition back away from an alternative program. We have so many opportunities to integrate them in a meaningful way that's important to them. If a student liked art class, okay, we can start there. It's not just kind of, oh, you're pushed back into your community full time. We can really be intentional about that student. Keeping students in our supervisory union allows students and families, most importantly, to also be connected to the adults that they were already working with. They don't have to come up with a whole new team of people working in another school. They're now still having the same adults and the same team members working with them, the same special educators, the same director of special services. And it allows us to continue to gather data on students so that we can serve them continuously, not kind of disjointed. Now they're gone and then they come back. We are serving them continuously throughout their time, going from a mainstream to an alternative and hopefully back to a mainstream. Right now, I work as a direct service provider in Bethel, so I pull students for specialized services. And one of the things I love about our small community and small school is all of the students are our students. If a student goes into special ed, it is not now just they're a student in special ed, they're all of our student, and I really feel that in our small schools. The classroom teacher and the special educator and all the related service providers really work together to make sure that student is everyone's student, not just belonging in one silo. I think having our smaller schools, we can identify challenges earlier. If we're having weekly data meetings, we can see in those data meetings, hey, this kiddo's struggling with this, let's get an intervention in place immediately, and then move up the multi-tiered system from there. Our schools really support inclusion while still meeting intensive needs. For our students who have intensive needs, they are still being included in their community and they're still part of their community, and that's really important. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Stephanie Russ. I am currently a first and second grade literacy teacher at the Bethel Elementary School. I have been teaching in Bethel for approximately 20 years and also in the primary grade level. I am also a resident of here in South Royalton, and I grew up in Tunbridge, so I come from a very small rural school setting background as a student and now as a parent. I currently have a student here in the high school as a sophomore, and my eldest son just graduated last year from this high school. My talking point today is to really just talk about the personal relationships that I have built as a staff member, and to also talk about how my children are building those same relationships as students in their school. When I first came to Bethel as a teacher, I was very nervous, and I had a lot of support around me to just learn the curriculum and to build up relationships within the building. The benefit over the last 20 years is that I have had a lot of those same members of our community in our school stay, which has built really strong bonds among us within our building. It doesn't matter if it's a personal issue, or if we're having trouble with a student, or if we just need a question answered and we need some help with something. We really have a strong commitment to each other as staff and a commitment to our students to have those conversations as needed, or to get that support on a moment's notice if you're feeling a pinch or feeling a struggle. I've always had support surrounding me, whether I was a beginning teacher or a veteran teacher. And I think the small schools really allow those opportunities to happen because we get to know each other on a personal basis, not only from what we do within our school, but what we do outside of our school. My children were both able to be a part of the merger as it came into the Bethel and South Royalton schools. My eldest son was a 6th grader, so he actually got the opportunity to experience it full through, and then of course my youngest son is doing the same. But he was the first group to come together as a 6th grade class in the middle school. And that opportunity allowed him to get to know kids on another level. They got more opportunity to be able to do other things as a larger group, but also keeping that small community centered. We also experienced COVID within that time, so that was also a new experience. And just speaking as a parent from that perspective, I still saw a community come through the screens. We were able to communicate via email, through Google Meets, which was fairly new to me, but we caught on real quick. And I would just say they had the opportunity to show need support and receive support if necessary. And also, it really showed me how well teachers are able to plan some amazing lessons in a really critical time in our life. Moving forward, as a teacher in that time, I didn't know how that was gonna look, and all I can say is a small community will really rally around you when you're having a hard time, and they were able to give support from a distance. And I can only say thank you so much to those parents, because without them and without the support that I felt through a screen or a text or something of the same, I don't know if I was even doing a good job or felt like I was helping my students at that time. But we pushed forward and we moved forward. And I don't know if a larger school, since I've never had the experience, would have that same feel, but I still felt centered, and it felt like home, and it felt confident for my students and for myself as a parent. For the last 20 years, I would say education has certainly changed, and the conversations we're having now are not ones I would have necessarily expected. But having been through so many different aspects of the education with my kids and with myself, I can only say that I hope that the conversations we continue to have will benefit all of us as you guys move forward with this. But I am thankful for my staff that works with me daily. I'm thankful for the opportunity to have people support my kids with their personal learning plans. Both of my children learn very differently, and it is not uncommon to get an email or a quick, hey, how you doing at a basketball game? I wanted to check in with you. And I just feel like those personable moments are not necessarily something you would see if you were in a larger community. And I can only say thank you for those moments, because without them, I might not know if my kids are doing the best they could be, and those relationships just speak loudly for me. So thank you.
Hi, my name is Mindy Farnham. I come to you today as a pre-K and 5 through 8 school counselor. I am also a parent of a sophomore in high school who is utilizing school choice, and a 5th grade who's in a merged district in First Branch. Those are 2 towns, Chelsea and Tunbridge, that have a merged district. I also come to you as a child, an adult child now, of a family of who I was raised as a business owner, a small business owner in the state of Vermont. My parents ran a small country store for nearly 20 years. So I understand the burdens that all of you are facing in the legislature, and we are as Vermonters. I also recognize that I made a conscious choice in 2016 to return to Vermont, 2005 to return to Vermont, and in 2006 to work in public education. It was then I was given the opportunity to become a school counselor at Chelsea School. At that point, it was a K through 12 school. At that point, the enrollment was probably around 325 students, again, K through 12. So I want to share some thoughts from my perspective as a parent and as a school counselor. Small schools are vital to communities. They're often the anchors in all of our communities in the state of Vermont. Small schools, from my perspective, provide individualized educational opportunities and are really able to meet the needs of students socially, emotionally, and academic. As we've seen and you've heard from my colleagues today, we are really data-driven in Vermont education, and we're looking at students individually and making conscious decisions to meet the needs of students. As I said, I was able to begin my career as a K through 12 school counselor in a small town. When Act 46 came along, the town of Chelsea, like many other towns, did what was asked, and through the process, it closed its high school. It was through this process that the residents of Chelsea decided that they would become a choice town. This was done through a process that involved everyone's voice, everyone's needs, and everyone's goals for educating the children in our town. Successful mergers require time. They require time for visioning, planning, and are voluntary. As a school counselor in middle school, I have the distinct opportunity every year to work with families in the 8th grade. We bring in and invite local high schools to come in and participate in what looks like a college fair, but it's really a high school fair, where families and students get the opportunity to meet with high schools and to help start the process of determining what is the best fit for their student, what is the best fit for their family. And so that is also one of the reasons that I stay in education, is because I get to help families and guide them to whatever is the best fit for them for high school. One size does not fit all, and all of our students deserve the opportunity to make the best decision for themselves, and families make the best decision for their families. So thank you.
So we're on to questions. Just out of curiosity, of the kids going into high school in Chelsea, what kind of blocks of kids go where, and what kind of percentage?
Okay, so not used to the microphone. Primarily our students who live, so what's important to know is that I work for the First Branch Unified District. So we operate a pre-K through 8 school, except for I work in Chelsea, so that is the pre-K 5 through 8, and in Tunbridge is the K through 4 campus. So students in Tunbridge and Chelsea all have school choice. So our 8th graders in Tunbridge and Chelsea are choosing to attend White River Valley High School, Thetford Academy, and Sharon Academy, primarily. I would also say that there are certainly other students and other families that are choosing schools in other parts of Vermont. And when I say that, I say, U32 in East Montpelier, we have students who have gone to Hartford High School. So it really comes down to what is the best fit for the student and what is the best fit for the family, also depending upon where the families are working.
Questions from the committee? Yeah.
So I don't think I'd fully taken on board before today that a choice community isn't part of the vote for bonding for their regional high school. So that seems to me one of the main problems that people are asking us to solve at the legislative level, is how do you have just a handful of local communities having to bond and make that decision about supporting something as massive as a comprehensive high school when there are towns that are not part of any of those bond votes. I don't know if others can speak to that, but I just wonder, I don't think anybody I don't want to close anybody's schools. You know, I was encouraging your students to think, what if this high school was bigger, frankly? What if you did get your performing arts center? And the only way I see the legislature being able to help that become a reality is drawing complete maps that say, you can send your child wherever you want, but you are paying for this region's school facilities.
Part of the answer may be the tuition, level of tuition that gets charged by the receiving school.
But I think it should be going to public schools.
But it's different, though, what the receiving schools can charge, set a tuition.
But you can be a choice town. I still think you have to be paying for the public facilities in your region.
Okay, we'll talk about it. Yeah, anyway. My point was that they do it indirectly.
Yeah, and I don't think, I mean, I'm certainly not the expert on this, but I think, you know, I live in a town where my taxes go to both, my educational taxes go to the local school in which I live in, but also help support the tuition of high school students. Part of my role as a school counselor is when I'm working with students and families, I'm collecting data that helps inform budgetary decisions. So our business office can look at where the students are going to for high school and help build a budget around that, because high schools do vary in what the cost is.
So other questions from the committee? I'll ask one. I don't know, it could also be a question for the principals or the superintendent, but how are you doing keeping kids at the grade level for math and English, and like by the time they get to high school, how are you doing with those? I'm somebody who is, you know, skeptical of always just looking at test scores. I know that doesn't begin to tell the story, but just in terms of that, how are you? Because you talked about intervention and the work you do to help kids keep up. How are you doing?
I think we do an exceptional job, frankly. We are able to see every child and meet every child's needs. We have very specific instructions that we give students to be able to help meet them where they're at and to help them to be able to grow. And we have really the math curriculum that we're using SU-wide, and that has made a huge impact on the success of our students. And in terms of literacy, as I spoke to already, it's very individualized where students are at, and you've been able to do a phenomenal job. I can't really speak to our small schools too much because we're too small to be able to say anything too specific. But in our small school, we were almost, on some test scores, was 100% where our kids were at in terms of meeting or being above. So I think that we've done things exceptionally well in our small schools. An example I can give you is we have one small class this year where 75% of the kids are on an IEP. And it's a very small class, not something that we would want to have a class necessarily that small, but the growth those students have seen this year has been phenomenal. And a part of that is because that classroom teacher is giving the tier 1 instruction very specifically to each of those children right where they're at. So that's been pretty incredible.
I see a hand over there.
I just wanted to back up Donna. In my literacy class right now with the first and second grade, I have a lot of good opportunity to work with students individually, but also in small group. And we've really focused in the last couple of years of doing a better job of progress monitoring students. So catching them earlier than when we would go to our testing windows. So I'm able to test students within a 2-week window to check in on certain skills. And at that point, I can let intervention know, like, I'm seeing some concerns, or saying like this child is making some really wonderful progress progress. Just want to let you know what I'm seeing here in the classroom. And I would also say our interventionists and I talk daily and we meet weekly, so we are able to really keep track of how our students are doing. We're currently in the middle of our testing window now, so more information to come about how the progress has moved forward since the beginning of the year. But I think progress monitoring also helps us really catch kids before we wait a 3-month period to see how they've been doing.
I also think we use a variety of strategies as well. We have Wilson, we have Orton Gillingham, we have DI, and if DI isn't working for this kid, why don't we have this person try it with this kid? So we have a number of strategies that we can pull from internally to help support a kid and give them the program that is best for them.
Just real quick, I just did a research project in my library because I was trying to figure out where we were with circulation in the middle school. So I had to look at reading scores in the middle school and was able to see that we are at or above grade level in the middle school. I know that's true for the youngers as well. And I think it speaks to what people are saying, which is we have differentiated learning. We have an opportunity in a small community to really pay attention to who needs what support so that we are able to keep up with who needs what and move forward.
Yeah, I know Senator Heffernan has a question. But go ahead, you go first.
Yeah,
Then
I
Senator
was just
Heffernan.
going to say, we start this as early as pre-K. So we're doing literacy. I said social and emotional skills is, at the top of the list, but we do Bridges. That was the math program she was referencing. So we're working on all of these curriculums that they utilize as the years go on, and we also have an intervention staff that can step in if a kiddo needs more attention.
So Senator Heffernan had a question.
So my question is, I realize how important rural schools are, but as a community, how do we decide when it's time to say this school has gotten too small and we should do something about it? What are your thoughts? Because some of you have seen schools close, and often or not, we always tell the bad side about it, which is hurting our community. But when, as a community, do you decide that, boy, child's education is most important, but we can't afford that bill? When do you, because that's the decision we're making, and we need help going around to these schools is helping us to try to make that some type of decision. But you're working in it. What kind of answer would you give me to that? Of when is there a tilting point that you said we may have to close this community school? Because that's what we're challenged.
So with Rochester and Stockbridge, we had merged with Act 46. That was a bit of a painful process to go through at that time. And we've done some amazing things since then with having the two schools, including sharing a principal between the two buildings. We know that we're small, and we believe there's things that the school board can do to be able to have our two school communities be able to we work phenomenally well together already, but there's more that can be done in terms of class size to be able to do that. One of the things I wanted to mention is we had a K-1 teacher at Stockbridge School for over 30 years probably, who was amazing, an amazing teacher. And one of the amazing things about our teachers in this supervisory union is how willing they are to do whatever it takes to support students, even including learning new things. She retired last year, and we have a new teacher this year who had taught in a much bigger school district. So we're so fortunate that she as well is an amazing teacher. What she said to me, well, before the school year started, we talked about how her students will be reading. Kindergartners will be reading. That is what happens for us. And she said, I've never really seen that before. By first grade, but not in kindergarten. So the kindergartners will be reading. So what she said to me was that she's blown away. Here it is December, with how quickly she's seeing results, far more outcomes. The students are easily able to make progress. She has time to be able to get them to where they need to be. And then she had lots of lovely things to say about the community and how welcoming it has been to her. But for her, being in two different perspectives and being able to see how much more she can do with students, with it being a smaller setting, was night and day to what her students are able to accomplish. So I don't know how small is too small. I just know when it's small, we're able to do great things.
So hold on. Yeah, you go, then Dave, then Senator Weeks, and then we probably have to wrap this up because we're up against the clock.
I would just say we are very fortunate in the White River Valley Supervisory Union to have really strong leadership at that level. And we're all speaking to curriculum that we use. And I might be the only school counselor in my building, but we're all using a shared curriculum supervisory union-wide, as well as the math and reading interventionists, classroom teachers. So there's a lot of sharing that happens at the supervisory level that does provide efficiencies. And also great collaboration between smaller schools. So it might not answer completely your question, Senator, but I think that it's important to note that the supervisory union is doing a great job with all of our schools to help and guide us to make sure that we're meeting students' needs, but we're also working together, and so that we're not working in isolation to meet all students' needs.
So Senator Weeks, and then I think we need to.
Okay, so the message is pretty clear. Small schools matter. Advocates of small schools, small schools, small schools, small schools, community schools, special education at a local level, small schools, small schools. So we're wrestling with the concept of small schools. And we put them in two buckets. There's small by necessity, essentially driven by geography, and there's small by choice. So we're trying to find the balance between really the small by choice. Small by necessity, we get that. It's small by choice, community choice, that we're listening to and trying to receive feedback in. And I just wanted to, because the theme here was very similar to the theme with the students earlier. We're not trying to merge schools. We're trying to merge admin. And what we're trying to do is create a system of superintendents that have a larger footprint that they're looking at to make decisions, some economic, but primarily academic. What is the right size? What is the right fit for the schools in that particular region? And the problem that we're wrestling with is we have superintendents who are looking at that community. We have superintendents who are looking at that community of 10 school or 10 towns and such. We're trying to figure out, well, what's the right scale for where superintendents should be looking at essentially, what academic programs can we deliver for the students? That's kind of the essence of what we're wrestling with. We get it that, small is beautiful. Okay, we get it. Everyone here is a Vermonter. But we're trying to find the balance between small by choice. Where's that tipping point of when we should try to affect it. Anyway, I just wanted it's not a question, it's just kind of a summary of one of the things we're trying to wrestle with. Thanks, sir.
I'd love to keep this going, but we can't. So thank you so much. You've all been articulate and very helpful. So thank you.
Thank you for your time.
So we'll actually stay on, because I think we're flipping right now, just quickly to principals.
Want to go mute?
I guess we can go. I guess we can mute, but otherwise stay on.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay.
Great.
So we can go turn the mic back on. So we're back on. You were all here when we introduced ourselves through the last panel. So I think you were. Hope you were. Okay. Okay, you were in class. Okay, that's a good excuse. So we'll do a quick introduction. I'm Seth Bongartz. I represent the Bennington Senate District. I'm chair of the Senate Education Committee.
Steve Heffernan, Addison County District from Bristol.
Keisha Rom-Hinsdale, Chittenden County.
Good afternoon, Dave Weeks, representing Rutland County, and I live in Proctor.
Hello, everybody. Terry Williams from Rutland County.
So I think you're going to go first, actually. We're dealing, by the way, for the people on screen, this is our time with principals from the various parts of the district. So just introduce yourselves, and you're on.
My name is Lindy Stetson, and I'm the principal of Rochester and Stockbridge Unified District. Do you want to do full introductions?
Sure.
Okay.
Can you say, because I'm looking at the map as well.
Yes.
The Rochester.
Stockbridge Unified District, so Rochester and Stockbridge
So
Elementary
you're
Schools.
the one who is the shared principal of both of those schools?
Correct.
Okay.
I'm Andrew Bowen. I'm the elementary principal here and in Bethel. I also do double duty.
My name is Pierre Laflamme. I am not a principal share between two buildings. I'm the principal of the middle school of the White River Valley schools, although I draw students from more than just the two sending towns of South Royalton and Bethel. I have students from 6, 7 different towns that show up physically on my campus.
Is your school here, co-located in this complex, or are you at the old Chelsea?
I'm over in Bethel. I'm in what was formerly the Whitcomb High School, junior and senior high school, just 15 minutes down the road.
So you're the middle school.
I am the middle school principal of
You're
the
the principal
merged
there
middle school.
for the elementary school and there. Okay. I don't know how you all keep it straight.
So you're on.
And I'm Shane Oakes. I'm the high school principal here at White River Valley High School. Only place I work.
And do you split your day, or do you do it day here, day there? How do you do it?
Yeah, so I start on Mondays here, and then I do Tuesdays and Thursdays in Bethel. Wednesdays I'm here. Friday I split my day, so I start the day here, and then I go there in the afternoon. And I'm very flexible, and everyone has my cell phone number, and, we work together.
So I know you all have something you want to say to us.
Yeah, so I do better with a lesson plan, so I'm prepared with words. So I'm just going to read it, and then you can ask me all the questions. So I'm Andrew Bowen. I'm a lifelong fifth-generation Vermonter, a Bethel resident, and a parent of a second grader at Bethel Elementary School and a senior here at the high school. I serve as the White River Elementary principal for both the Bethel and Royalton campuses within our supervisory union. I have been with the district for 26 years, beginning my career here as a first grade teacher in 2000. After graduating from a Vermont college, I was also part of the merger planning and visioning work that helped shape the system you see here today. I work closely alongside Pierre, the middle school principal, and Shane, our high school principal. As the elementary principal across two campuses, I've served 158 students and their families at South Royalton Elementary School and 119 students and their families at Bethel Elementary School, and work with around 58 faculty and staff, many of whom are shared across middle school and high school. Our two campuses elementary model works because of strong systems of support, including shared leadership, collaborative teams, and a clear commitment to working together from early childhood through graduation. We also maintain strong partnerships with community organizations to meet the needs of our students and families. We are deeply committed to a whole child education at our school, and we have invested in farm to school initiatives. And if you've ever been to the Tunbridge Fair, you have seen our blue ribbons, some of which came from our produce from our new raised beds, and our eggs from our school chicken coop in Bethel. We have a robust elementary educating children outdoors program at both campuses, making use of natural resources like the river here in South Royalton and the trail networks at Bethel. We have winter activities, which are kicking off in January when we come back, which includes swimming opportunities for our kindergartners and skating and skiing for everyone else. The One Planet After School program, which provides care until 5:30 p.m., also offers vacation programming and 6 to 7 week summer camps. We have strong arts programming, including visual and performing arts, with opportunities for students as young as 4th and 5th grade to participate in chorus and band. We also have full-service community school practices offering access to therapists, dental care, vision screening, and a pediatrician on our campuses through partnerships with Claire Martin Center, Health Hub, and the Lions Club. I would also be remiss not to also mention that even during COVID, we successfully delivered full virtual learning while continuing to support educators and families, and we were among the first of the schools to return to in-person learning well ahead of others. Academically, we are seeing strong results from our teachers' hard work and our intentional professional development. Student performance is above state averages in places, particularly in science. Our campuses have been acknowledged by Vermont PBIS and are in silver status for the last school year, which is an acknowledgement of our campuses demonstrating high-quality implementation of the PBIS framework. This year, we are actively addressing chronic absenteeism and working closely with outside agencies such as South Royalton Health Center, Health Hub, and DCF. At the same time, we are seeing increasing strain on the state health and human services agencies that we rely on as crucial partners. Finally, we are proud of our fiscal stewardship. Over the past 5 years, we have maintained lower tax rates and completed major capital improvements without bonding, all while expanding opportunities for students. I look forward to sharing more about how our model works, the challenges we face, and the support we need to sustain and strengthen public education in Vermont. And in closing, once a first grade teacher, always a first grade teacher, there's a picture book by Sharon Creech called A Fine, Fine School. I'm gonna cry. About a principal who has pride in his school. It culminates with the reflection that the balance between structured learning and real life experience is what is best for kids. As both an educator and a parent of children here, I can say with confidence that we have is truly a fine, fine school.
I didn't hear the name of the book because you.
A fine, fine school.
A fine, fine.
School.
So this is like a book we can
read. I actually often get invited into classrooms to read at the beginning of the year because it's actually hilarious because the principal's like, this is a fine, fine school. We should go to school on Saturdays. We should go to school on Sundays. We should go to school all year. And the little girl says, but I have to teach my dog how to sit, and I have to learn how to climb a tree. And that school's important, and so are our outdoor education opportunities, our skiing opportunities, all the things that we do. Going to the Tunbridge Fair, it's all important. Yes. Thank you.
So my name is Lindy Stetson. I'm also a Vermonter and went to high school at Mount Abraham Union High School and come from a family of educators, to say the least. I'm currently the principal at Rochester and Stockbridge Elementary Schools, which are preschool through 6th grade. When I first took this position, it was at the tail end of Act 46, and I was just the principal of Stockbridge Central School. After completing my second year, which was supposed to be smoother and then was COVID, so that was not true at all, I became the shared principal of both Rochester and Stockbridge Elementary School, while also being the principal of the virtual academy that we ran for families who did not feel comfortable for their students to come back to in-person learning. Prior to this role, I was also part of Act 46 as I was the athletic director and high school social studies teacher at what was Whitcomb High School. Since merging as a Rochester and Stockbridge Unified District, we've come a long, long ways for many reasons, but the most is the educational opportunities we've been able to provide our students that were not in existence prior to. For example, we now have art classes 1 time a week throughout the entire school year. When I first started, students only had art class a total of 18 times a year. We provide winter wellness, which includes skiing and snowboarding lessons, ice skating, snowshoeing, cross-country skiing, basically anything outside, at no cost to families, and it runs for 6 weeks throughout January and February. We now have outdoor education 2 times a week. This was not even an option prior to merging. We also have a math interventionist, something we did not have at all when I first started. Literacy intervention was a part-time position by an amazing person who worked like 3 half-days a week. When we merged, we were able to provide this as a full-time position. I would make the argument now that our test scores and our kids are such strong readers that we've been able to decrease that need. We also are now able to offer 2 days a week of PE classes. At the time, it was only offered 1 time, and I was frequently teaching PE class because I wasn't able to fill the position when I first started. We also are a farm to school and forest community. This has included local field trips around all of our local farming in partnership with those areas. Gardening, we invite our families in to cook with us, and we frequently are able to do multi-age, not just multi-age classrooms, but we will be pre-K through 6 in our, we call it a multi-purpose room, but gym, lunchroom, the space where everything happens, where everybody is cooking together. So from 3-year-olds all the way to 12-year-olds will sometimes be in a group together. There was no instrumental music lessons or chorus, and we're now able to offer those things. We increased all these educational opportunities, and while some may say, well, that must have been expensive, I'm here to tell you that our state per pupil spending, like our per pupil spending is lower than the state average. In fact, last year, for this current school year, our per pupil spending under the long-term weighted average was $12,357. Which was actually down from the 2024-2025 school year of $12,470 $12,470.12 per pupil. The largest portion of our budget annually is not staff, it's not healthcare, it's actually our 7 through 12 tuition. Because all our 7 through 12 tuition students have school choice. We are able to manage that through the strengthening of our local middle school and high school within our SU. And now these are the two schools that a majority of our population choose to come to. So through that partnership, we are able to keep that at a more predictable level than what it was when I first started in this role. Other ways we've created cost-saving measures but also been effective is sharing roles and responsibilities across both Rochester and Stockbridge elementary schools. The following positions are shared between our two campuses. Myself, the school counselor, our school nurse, our art teacher, our outdoor educator, music teacher, physical education teacher, librarian, math interventionist, and our special educator and special educator service provider. And within our partnership of White River Valley Supervisory Union, we're able to provide occupational therapy to students, physical therapy, as well as speech and language. We've expanded all these educational opportunities, and we've been able to support all of our families by truly becoming a full-service school. There's partnerships that we have created, first with our local health agency of Clara Martin, which provides a school-based clinician to us. Okay. We also have dental services through what's called Health Hub that come 2 times a year and provide dental cleanings to most families who cannot access dental services anywhere else. And we have a partnership with Gifford Pediatrics, which comes 1 to 2 times a month right into our school. So students never have to miss and travel, sometimes upwards of over an hour to access those services. In working in our partnership with Clara Martin, we've also been able to keep our out-of-district placement rate to 0%. We support families who have food insecurity through grant funding and other local opportunities by providing, and in fact, my amazing staff is putting this together right now as I speak, food boxes for households over extended vacations. We may be very small in size, but we're nimble, and we support all our students' needs as they arise. In fact, there's only 21% of our students who are supported by either an IEP, 504, or targeted intervention plan. And this is due in large part to being able to provide early intervention, as we provide full 5-day-a-week preschool programs for our 3- and 4-year-old students within and outside of our school district. And this comes at no cost to families. So this is part of our school budget annually. At the end of the 2024-2025 school year, 86% of our kindergarten through 3rd grade students met or exceeded the standard in mathematics, and 79% of our kindergarten through 3rd grade students met or exceeded the standard in literacy. This is due to us being able to leverage partnerships within our supervisory union model and implementing instructional programming such as Bridges or direct instruction and literacy. So again, we're small in size. There's 87 kids in Rochester, and there's 47 kids in Stockbridge. But please keep in mind, the nearest elementary school, if this were to close schools, is anywhere from 18 to 26 miles away from Rochester. And not just like a straight shot, because there is no such thing as a straight shot from Rochester, all right? That's either over one of 2 mountains. You can head to Brandon, you can come to Bethel, or you could go through what's called the Gulf, which is really fun when the weather changes on Route 100. I don't know if you've experienced that travel up to the Waitsfield Warren area. Imagine trying to put your 5-year-old on the bus for that. And I think you will hear that in echo when some of our community members come out today. So we pride ourselves on being a small school with big hearts and where all students are seen and have relationships not just with their classroom teacher, but multiple other adults in the building who are consistently providing a safe space for them. And this connection and our additional support and educational opportunities are creating greater student successes daily. And I would not want your job for the world of what you're going on. And I know taxpayers are seeing the burden of what's going on, but keep in mind, it's the kids that are gonna have the greatest impact of whatever comes out of here. And that's why all of us are here, to make sure kids are kept in the forefront of this decision-making.
Yes, and All of those things are true. I thank you for your time in looking at this very critical issue for us. I speak to you today as a school leader, a principal of a middle school, but to be very clear, I can't divorce that from who I am as a taxpayer facing nearly 40% increase on my taxes in a very different district. I can't separate it from my experience as a school board member in a bygone era co-chairing an Act 46 steering committee. I've seen firsthand what happens when in a conversation you use words like consolidation, school closure, efficiencies. And instead of going back into that sometimes circular conversation, I want to answer something that your chair framed for me. And really, what are we doing here to create opportunities for students? Because at the end of the day, you're looking at scales and efficiencies. And I appreciate your question, Senator, of thinking it from a different lens. What if this was the place that was attractive? And indeed, that's the system our leadership and we have been building, is a place that's attractive. And so I would see increasing student numbers in our district, unlike others. We're trying to build systems and programming. I personally have spent the vast majority of my adult career in education, from quite literally everything from the school custodian, teaching through all grades, multiple subjects, teaching in college. I've been a school board member. So I have some idea of what you're talking about when you're looking at shared staff or efficiencies or things that have impact on different areas of a school. This particular school, my school, White River Valley Middle School and the White River Valley School, was one of the first in Vermont, to my knowledge, to enter into building on the community schools model. And I'd like to talk to you about how that was a vehicle for change. It fundamentally reshaped our approach. It certainly reshaped my approach coming into this school. And through coordinated partnerships, as has been mentioned, with our local community health and mental health agencies, we do more than just say we provide wraparound supports. We have very intertwined, connected wraparound supports for students and families that have netted true results, measurable results in terms of how we approach chronic absenteeism and student engagement, bringing families back to the table to more than just comply with attendance, but to identify what are those barriers and obstacles. That comes from the philosophy of being a community-centered school where you're public-facing. We are not unique in that mission. Other colleagues I have around the state, shout out to Bob DiGiulio at Hazen, has a similar approach of building on the community's strengths so that what we're nurturing in student learning matches the kinds of job sets and skills we need, the industry that's growing around, to do the same thing we're all concerned about, keeping Vermont talent in Vermont, ceasing the brain drain, keeping our youth seeing a connection to a community where they can thrive. Just as importantly, the community schools model really allowed us to expand learning opportunities earlier and more intentionally. The philosophy and the connections we made allowed us to bring work-based learning to a 7th grader, to bring algebra to 7th and 8th graders, to look for those opportunities that were more than just a one-off, but that could pave a way for opening other pathways. In this community schools model, we lean into the concept of flexible pathways, and we know whether it's Principal Bowen or Stetson, or my colleague to my left, Principal Oakes, our job is to create a meaningful pathway towards graduation, to have sights on something that matters beyond just doing school, having aspirations, explorations. That's why we lean into capstone projects here. An example of how we expand opportunities beyond our walls, I mentioned that more than just 2 towns send to me, more than just the Rudd School District send students to me. And that's by intentionally recruiting, working with partners throughout the SU, but also becoming a hub for places like VTVLC, where some of my students I've never physically met, I've seen through Zoom, and live multiple counties away. Some of your constituents attend my middle school, hours away. I am left wondering how we could apply that kind of success of being a hub of learning if we're also talking about physically moving students across large distances. Just a wonderment I pose. Innovation here is really a core tenet of our work, and what that comes through as is investment in STEAM, more than just an acronym. We have a vibrant arts program to treat the whole child, the whole student. But an example of how that's grown in my middle school, we invested heavily in a makerspace, a wonderful glittering crown jewel that has everything from hand felting and leather working through a loom, sewing, embroidery machines, laser cutters, engravers, basic CNC machining skills and life skills and production skills that allow us to take a minds-on approach and make it a hands-on approach as well. That space is also a hub for another core tenet of our school. How do we give back to this community that's given us so much? An aspect of the community schools that we've tried to grow and keep central. What are we giving back to these communities that support us? It's important, again, that what we're trying to produce, what we're trying to nurture, are students with curiosity, with resilience that will push through obstacles, but also look at their community as something they want to be a part of. It's supported them. They have a two-way relationship. They see job opportunities. They see advancement, evolution of our systems. They see people thriving. They're more likely to stay with us. An important and hard to quantify aspect of the opportunities we create is how we have really changed, in my mind, relationships with parents, caregivers, concerned community members. Whether it's a hosted event where we have a specific singular topic or a meeting for coffee and cannoli, not making that last one up, I enjoyed the cannoli. We have multiple ways where people can give us meaningful feedback and they see meaningful change. We're not nodding and smiling, and these parents and caregivers are not coming in combative. Here's the problem. They're coming in saying, we love what you're doing here, but it could be even better. A recent piece of feedback was, we recognize you offer a lot of opportunities. What are you doing for the parents that don't have all the wherewithal to advocate for how do we know what's out there? So we know one of our missions is better broadcasting of what those opportunities are. Having parents at the table beyond as stakeholders, but true partners in education, and knowing that what we're doing is in the best interest of their child comes through in how we are framing these conversations. We're not having multiple meetings. We're getting all the caregivers' resources there at one time through those partnerships. At the same time, we are very realistic, I think, about current challenges. We continue to address chronic absenteeism through that close collaboration with our outside partners and with each other. These partnerships, I stress, they are essential. I know you know that. I'd like to point out they require proximity, coordination, and long-term sustainability to remain effective. We're seeing results after a couple of years of growing that partnership. I'm excited to think what that would look like 5 years down the road. I don't know how that would work if a student is 30 miles from their home, in a different regional high school potentially, and the doctor at the table is not their own caregiver. We currently have the practitioners working with the families at the table in conversation to make plans that affect change. Throughout all of these opportunities we created, we have remained committed through our leadership and our alignment to really responsible fiscal stewardship, that word used intentionally, of what the taxpayers are expecting and what they're investing in. We prefer to invest in structures that meaningfully change, keep things safer, offer more opportunities, adding to the shop, to the makerspace, to our amazing outdoor ed program. That's what this community invests in, and we see that when community members show up and invest in our spaces, cutting new mountain biking trails on my campus, rehabbing a 9-hole disc golf course. Because one thing we are proud of, our students are outside every single day. We use the word stewardship of the land, of the taxpayer finances, of their futures. We use that word intentionally. I hope that as you consider the future of public education in Vermont, I do encourage you to look very closely at how opportunity is created in practice. Because whatever path we take, it's built through relationships, through proximity to those resources, whatever they might be, and through that community investment. How distance, scale, and access affect students' readiness to learn and a community's sense of voice, those are huge challenges you need to consider, and I know you know that. Again, I thank you for your time. And I will leave with a pitch about our SU, our school districts, our partnerships. You should be looking at how to add to us. We are a model. And we are built on models that you'll find across the state when you put the community needs at the front and center. Thank you.
Greetings, thank you. As I said earlier, my name is Shane Oakes. I'm the first-year principal here at White River Valley High School, but this is my 7th year working here at South Royalton campus. I've taken an interesting path to get here. I moved to Vermont with my wife back in 2000 after we graduated from college and settled near her family in central Vermont. I started my professional career as a correctional officer. Having studied criminology in college, I really saw a professional career of service in law enforcement or something along those lines. And I quickly realized that I needed to do work further upstream than where I started out. And so I left that job and I came to work at the Clara Martin Center in Randolph, the local community mental health agency. And for 2 years worked with adults, and then I had the opportunity to transition into the child and family program where I began working at East Valley Academy, which is an approved independent special education school that serves students with social, emotional, and behavioral challenges. It was there that I earned my teaching license, spent 11 years at East Valley Academy, the last 5 as the head of school, as well as the director of school-based services for the Clara Martin Center. It's in that capacity that I first worked with Principal Bowen and Superintendent Canarney, and really helped me shape a strong understanding of the service needs in the state and the challenges that our schools face. Now, back in the early 2000s, you could drive from Chelsea down to Tunbridge, down to South Royalton, over to Bethel, across the way through Stockbridge and in Rochester, and there was 4 high schools there. And I'm not a Vermonter. I'm from northern Maine. I grew up in a very rural school district of about the same size geographically as White River Valley Supervisory Union, though we don't have the same topographical challenges that make transportation the barrier that it is here. But that didn't make a lot of sense to me, that we had so many schools in such close proximity, and I saw some of the challenges that our community faced. In 2015, I left East Valley Academy to work at the Family Center of Washington County, which is a parent-child center closer to home. It was a move that was good for my family and our personal needs. And I stepped into another field that was undergoing a lot of change at the time. The Race to the Top Early Challenge Grant, Let's Grow Kids was coming on board. There was a lot of attention in the early childhood field and a lot of promise about the science and investment in youth. And it was there that I became familiar with an analogy about systems and how a lot of our systems in Vermont are similar to old farmhouses. They start with the building of a house, and then a barn, and then you add a milking parlor, and an outbuilding, and then maybe you connect some of these things, or you add an addition onto the house, and eventually you get a structure that continues to meet the needs. But if we had started from scratch and designed it with that forward thinking, probably isn't the design that we would have. And that was certainly my experience in the early childhood field at the time. So in 2019, when I decided to come back into education, I really chose White River Valley High School because of all the work that I saw happening here. Not only had they had difficult conversations and made decisions at the local level to merge schools. There were some forced consolidations in there as well, I understand. But they were really actively working to build a MTSS system, multi-tier student supports, that really works to address and make sure that we're meeting the needs of all students. And so I was really drawn to that and have just been so excited and proud of the work that we have done as a community in my time here. So, you know, I think there are three things that really make this school special and this community special to me, and I think that is this sense of community belonging that we've created, the connections and the partnerships that we have within our local community, those other resources, and the opportunities that we are able to provide. So when I think about belonging, you know, I believe that our students need a strong sense of community and need to have deep connections with their teachers. This is a challenging time for our students, and they face a lot of challenges, and we are asking them consistently to be vulnerable, to put themselves out there in a world that isn't always that kind and supportive. And I couldn't ask for a more supportive, caring, and compassionate community than what we have here. And it's not just the teaching staff that work here that are paid professionals, as others have spoken to. It's really a community that comes out, that is involved, that is engaged, and cares deeply in advocating for what's best for students and for taxpayers. We've accomplished a lot to build that community, do some very unique things through our teacher advisory structures, the way that we develop community here at the high school through morning meetings, school-wide activities, and traditions such as, you know, turkey trots and outing days and spring and winter carnivals and other things that, as Ms. Bowen talked about with reference to our books, really are important things that extend beyond just what we think of as traditional academic days, but serve as that foundation of that relationship, that authentic connection that students and teachers are able to develop and foster, that really allows us to transition to the classroom and be able to challenge and push students in the way that they need to. We also have a long history of community-based learning here, where students are able to find meaningful opportunities to engage with learning outside of the classroom, exploring areas of interest, different careers, volunteer opportunities, supported employment. A lot of students are earning credit for classes and work that they're doing out in the community. And working on that through our White River Valley Portrait of a Learner, Characteristics and Traits, so that they understand that connection between the things that we're asking them to do here in the classroom and what those look like once they move beyond high school and are out into the careers. There's been a lot of talk about our community partnerships. Certainly community mental health, our local health centers, we mentioned the health hub, the fact that we have care coordinators and sometimes even doctors participating in our MTSS systems, where we're trying to problem solve and work around some of our most challenging and complex students and families, is just absolutely amazing to me, and just a strength of our school. And then the opportunities that we've been able to create here. You know, we have a flexible pathways department that 41% of our students are engaged in some form of flexible pathway that's outside of just the traditional courses, study classes that all high school students kind of look through and pick from. And that really allows them to customize their path, lean into their interest, and find things that are meaningful, learning that they see themselves in, and work to keep them engaged in reducing dropout rates. We also really are lucky and fortunate to be able to have partnerships with both the Hartford Area Career Technical Center and the Randolph Career Technical Center that are two very different programs, one half day, one full day, and our physical proximity and ability to work with both schools provides a lot of opportunities for students to find the path that works best for them. Here, our co-curricular activities for a small Division III school are pretty outstanding. We offer 17 varsity sports. We also have co-op partnerships with other area schools, so if there are activities like football and lacrosse and things like that that we don't offer here, we still have students that are able to engage in and work in those things. Our performing arts department is an absolute pride and joy of the community. So we offer concert band, jazz band, chorus, drama, our National Honor Society. We have numerous clubs. There is something for everybody to get involved with here. And so, you know, this is a wonderful community to work and teach in. It is very reminiscent of my own upbringing that really had a whole community of folks that was involved in raising and shaping me, and I see a lot of those same things here. I'm just really proud to be a member of this community and happy to answer any questions that you all might have. Thank you.
We'll start, we have a couple minutes, but I want to pull the thread a little bit more on, I had one principal back in my district say to me, an elementary school principal, K through 8, if it were up to me, buses wouldn't run until 5 o'clock. And because we do after-school programs, if parents wanted to pick their kids up early, that would be fine, but we have really good after-school programs because so often what kids are going home to isn't conducive to the next day. And then thinking about you alluded to summer programs, and so there's the in-school program, and it's so important, but then you've alluded to the high school level, all the opportunities for perhaps after-school extracurricular activities. I'm going to talk about that at the elementary level. What are you doing for kids? A lot of kids living in poverty, a lot of kids without. And so thinking about after school and summer, what are you doing to augment that, the opportunity for those kids?
Yeah, so in Rochester and Stockbridge, and really supervisory union-wide at the elementary level, we have what's called One Planet after-school programming, and it runs till like 5:30, depending on the location. Families who are supported through free and reduced lunch pay a discounted rate. There's scholarship opportunities, so the fee structure is never the barrier. Through that, we have program leaders that come in and offer things like Junior Iron Chef is getting ready to start, or we have a partnership with the Arts Bus out of Randolph that comes in one day a week. During the summertime, that runs approximately
We have some that run 7.
Yeah, 6 to 7 weeks, depending on the location. And that runs, I think, we share a site in the summer in Stockbridge and Rochester, and we provide transportation for families when it's not in Rochester or it's not in Stockbridge. We run a bus. And that pickup starts at 7:30 in the morning and runs as late as 5. And through then, we've provided swimming lessons over the summer through that programming.
Field trip every week, they go somewhere. This is a learning opportunity. I agree, there's like partnerships. We have Bonshire comes in and does programming here with kids. So there's a lot of going places. There's a lot of people coming to us while we're here. There's also tutoring embedded. So we identify kids before we leave for the summer that might need an extra boost over the summer to stop learning loss. So we have teachers that come in and pick up kids to do fun summer tutoring, so we don't have that slide over the summer as well. We also offer a lot of food, so we're feeding kids, we're feeding families as well.
We heard about that at the cafeteria, everything we're doing for kids over the summer. So the middle school has a word to throw in here?
Oh, I'm anxious to answer that question. We have a middle school that offers, I think, more than many. We have an after-school club during the school year, almost every single day, ranging from D&D gaming to art projects to film discussion, all kinds of clubs, in addition to some pretty vibrant sports of our own. We have a contract with an outside bus agency to provide a second round of busing around 4:30. We also work with them on other times of the day in their route to get students from this side of the mountain to the other side of the mountain, so to speak. We do not want food insecurity to be a barrier to access. Through some of our community partnerships with Leahy Institute and UVM, we had interns building even more of our summer food service program. You heard about 10,000 meals leaving our campus. We're also working towards the point where we can make sure those who need are going home with dinner. The student waiting for that 5:30 practice that might not have a full cupboard, they get a meal just the same as the other student sitting next to them, so that everyone has that need met. Those are just pieces of how we try to fill programming. It would be interesting to have it until 5, but high school.
Yeah, at the high school, a lot of our activities are more athletics. We do have some after-school clubs. Clever Cat Scholar Squad is a student-run study group. We also have various gaming clubs. As I mentioned earlier, the drama and play performances are very vibrant and draw a lot of students. And we do leverage the collaborative relationship with RCT, the bus company, to make sure that students that have transportation challenges have ways to get back to their home communities as well.
Good, thank you. I think we have, maybe we'll take time for one.
There's something for everyone, but there's many things for some kids too. So kids are doing multiple sports or engaging in many of these things. They're in the play and on the basketball team. They're not just, I can only do one thing. So I feel like it's a real highlight for our kids here, that they can dabble in all of the things. They don't just get cut because they're not the best. They can learn to grow and be shining in all these opportunities.
Why don't we'll take one more question if somebody has one. We'll be a little bit behind if we do that, but.
Well, your fourth graders asked me for a water park, just so you know. So, just we're a little behind. I said the State House should have a water park too. That would make it.
Okay. Well,
That's the river. It's the river down there.
the river that actually
have Upper Valley
it.
Aquatic
Yeah. Thank you. That was really helpful, really informative, deeply informative, actually. So thank you very much for the time. And we'll switch right over to our superintendent.
These are all tough acts to follow, and you've all dealt with me prior. So I didn't prepare any remarks, actually. I tried to highlight some things and answer questions.
Let Jamie get started. You have anything you want us to start with?
Well, I was going to first, I know Senator Rom Hinsdale had some questions in regards to how the supervisory union works and how money flows within the supervisory union, really, and why would a bond vote here at the White River Unified District not have voters voting on that vote, an example in Chelsea. And so one of the things you've heard me speak to that I think is important is that the supervisory union structure provides for local governance and still local control and oversight of their schools. And frankly, I would say to you, I'll put up our ed spending, I'll put up our academic scores against all the different SDs and SUs across the state. And one of the reasons I think we do well is accountability measures that are in place by our local school district boards and the local citizens that I go to and report to monthly with the board. And that when we vote on our budgets, I'm looking them in the eye and talking to them about how are our students performing, and they get to ask questions. And they're voting on their school budgets from the floor, majority of them. Only the White River Unified District uses Australian ballot in Stratford right now. But there's major turnout for our town meetings even there to get those questions answered prior to voting. And so the way that it works here is that the White River Unified District right now has 83 tuition students that come to us from across the state, majority of which come from this SU. and we announce our tuition at $19,900. And when that money comes in, when we're announcing that tuition, those funds are helping to support not only the programming students receive, but also the facility as well. And what that's allowed us to do as we've been able to increase tuition dollars into this White River Unified District, we've been able to expand programming that you've heard principals and teachers talk about, and also improve our facilities. And the bond did not pass, but yet we've been able to put money away in our reserves, and the board just took action last night to do a $2.3 million project that we didn't need a bond for in order to do. And that we're able to use our capital reserve funding to help offset as well as private donors, that we have about $750,000 to make that happen. So that gym that you see behind you will be totally recreated into a performing arts center next summer. And all the secured entrance work will be done in the HVAC work that we had planned for this district. Yes, Senator.
So, and I'm sorry, I have to leave in 5 minutes. I hear that, but you're also a great person to educate us on where we find value in supervisory unions if we were to allow for them in a new construct. And getting tuition dollars from a handful of students from a town is very different than having that town take part in bonding for school facilities, right? I don't know if I'm not understanding, but if you have a choice town and they decide where to send their dollars, that whole town is not bonding for the local high school like the towns that do not have choice and are supporting that local high school. That seems patently unfair. That's not equal.
Well, if Stratford was to bond for their school, which they could choose to do, White River Unified District would also not have a vote in improving their infrastructure in Stratford.
So why?
Because we're separate school district entities.
So
the voters get to oversee their local school district budgets.
I think if we're finding any value in supervisory unions versus districts, it has to be facilities efficiencies, and it has to be towns paying equal amounts for things like a regional high school.
I would say to you that when you look at large multi-town school districts, which I think you've been provided data on, that they tend to spend excessively more money per student than multi-town supervisory unions. And I believe part of the reason for that is fiscal responsibility and involvement in those local school district boards and communities around decision making. And reminder, you all know this, the Ed Fund is a statewide Ed Fund. People in Royalton didn't get to vote for the bond in Burlington, but they are also helping fit the bill for the bond in Burlington.
Right, so then I just don't see the value of a supervisory union unless we say, this is the high school you all are paying for. That's how we get to regional high schools.
Well, I see a value in not saying to someone who lives in Granville that they have to pay for a high school here that their child doesn't attend. And I don't think it makes sense to have a student in Granville, which touches Warren, to have to be on the bus to come to this high school when their family travels either over to Middlebury or up the valley for work, up to Harwood. And that's where I see the value of choice for rural districts.
I guess what I'm not clear on is the whole community's paying for the high school, not just the tuition student.
Only the taxpayers of Bethel and Royalton are voting and approving this high school's budget because they are a K through 12 operating district.
But if we let communities keep choice within supervisory unions, I don't know how we say your whole town is let out of paying for having a high school.
They pay for that via their tuition dollars that go with it.
Tell me how much they pay more for the facility.
We charge $19.9 per student. I have other public schools next to my district that is charging as much as $27,000 per student, Senator. I have independent schools in this SU, like Sharon Academy, that are paying about charging 22, and Thetford Academy that's charging 23, and Hartford that charges close to 25. And so what I would say is that the real question is how do we create accountability to districts for student achievement and per pupil spending? And one of the simple things I think we could have done in the meantime as we looked at Act 73 and talking about merging and how public dollars follow is really looking at what is the means with an excess spending threshold penalty, and really looking at how are we going to hold accountability to districts of how much they're spending per pupil. I also think that we should be looking at saying that there's measures in regards to student performance, measures in regards to community engagement that we should be measuring. And if school districts are not performing well in those areas, that we ought to be going in and providing serious technical support to right the ship around that, much like we had when Secretary Holcomb was secretary in regards to the work that happened around Green Mountain Star after No Child Left Behind. And I would say to you that the choice districts in this SU, a majority of them didn't ask for choice. Montpelier said they were too small and they had to close their high school. And that resulted in them then having choice. They did what Montpelier said they should have done during Act 46. Chelsea didn't want to close that high school. Montpelier told them they had to. And now what I'm hearing, Senator, is that Montpelier should then say that you also then, if you live up on the Washington line and have a closer high school in Williamstown, that you should be forced to come down $110 an hour to come to high school. I don't think that's right. That's not what they asked for.
I don't know that anyone's saying they should be forced to go to a specific high school, but every community should be paying for a high school.
And they do through their tuition dollars. I'm happy to sit down and show you how that finance works, but when a high school sets their announced tuition, they are also figuring in the facility center.
But you said the biggest part of your budget is money being tuitioned out of this district.
I never said that.
Okay.
No, what one of my principals said is that tuition dollars, of which we also receive, because the majority of their students come to this district, is what's driving her budget, right? Because she has limited teachers in her K through 6 sections. She now, because Rochester closed their high school, are forced to tuition out. And a majority of her kids are coming here, so they are helping pay for the facility we're going to build next summer. She just doesn't have control over that because the tuition's announced.
So once again, what I feel like I'm hearing is that the foundation formula is the cost containment measure, because we'd no longer be sending $22,000, $24,000, $25,000 to academies. We're sending the same amount.
You are not going to hear me say that I have a major concern with the approach to a foundation formula. Getting the weights correct and ensuring that they make sense, we need to do some real good research on, because I think part of why we got here was that we didn't get that right during Act 127, and that 5% spending threshold that was put in place with that people weren't going to be penalized, folks abused, and that's how we got to this fiscal crisis, coupled with folks using one-time dollars during COVID funding times to add positions that they didn't have a long-term plan of how to pay for. I would also say to you, like many of my colleagues, we agree, Senator, there's too many superintendents. I agree with that.
Can you say that again?
There's too many superintendents. And I say that because I live in Calais and I drive here to work every day, and on my way from Calais to when I get on the interstate in Montpelier, I drive through 3 supervisory districts, which is a way less square miles than I oversee right now. And so I would agree with you, and I'm not picking on them, they know I say these things, is that we need to look at right-sizing it. What I worry about when we unilaterally right-size it with SD, Senator, is that a school board member in Barry doesn't understand what's important for a student in Rochester. And I worry about these large SDs being that school board member in Barry says it's really easy to close that small school in Rochester, but what they don't realize is Granville-Hancock kids have nowhere to go to school then through that valley, all the way from Killington up to Warren. And that's the worry that I have with those large SDs.
Can I just ping on that? So isn't that the role, so in our world, that's the role of government operations. They're the guys who figure out what the structure of the school board will be, like who represents who. so that if there is a larger district that, and that there's a heavy inside that district like Barry, but there's small towns and surrounding, how does that representation be factored in? So we're not so, I don't think we're so worried about that, because that's a conversation about how to represent the wards that will hopefully result in a fair representation of large communities, small communities simultaneously.
With all due respect, I think for most folks in rural towns, and myself included, who lives in Calais and the school district's trying to close the school when it's the largest it's been in over a decade, unilaterally without a vote of the town. Actually, the school board chair said they should move the kids to another school, only keep pre-K in Calais. Then once the parents see that that worked well, then we'll do a vote of the town to close, which is not what the Articles of Agreement said. Actually, there's a big important meeting in Calais about that tonight. The worry I have, Senator, is why I said that, is that I don't trust that we will necessarily get that right and we'll have fair representation. And I think that that's what lots of folks in Vermont are scared about right now. They trust local governance and local representation. They struggle to be convinced that those wards are going to have their best interest for each one of our current rural district boards. And I think if we could build that trust, that would be helpful. But examples like not following Articles of Agreement and closing Calais and just keeping one grade in school by a local unified school district, and again, what you've heard me say, which I think was not the best approach, closing Roxbury unilaterally when Montpelier couldn't pass a budget, that doesn't build trust. We've not done a good job in regards to educational governance when we act that way.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. The first place I ever heard the word consolidation or merger was superintendents. So what I'd like to get from you is, for the benefit of your experience, the pros and cons of you as a superintendent having authority over a larger footprint as opposed to the 10 communities you have now. Can you just pros and cons of?
Yeah, so let's say, I'm going to go back to like example a CT map, right? That was going to add Orange Southwest to this, to a supervisor union framework, and I believe they had included Thetford. And if you looked at the RTCC, our regional tech center, that it probably would have encompassed CVSU, which is Echo Valley, Orange, Washington. So I would have had 16 towns, 4 counties, essentially from exit 2 through exit 5. The biggest downfall would have been my ability to have firsthand knowledge in regards to where we're running efficient or where we need to improve as compared to what I have right now. I can be in a majority of my schools every week. The students know me. You saw me having lunch today with the kindergartners. That gives me firsthand information to make important decisions around how to improve programming and to make certain we're being fiscally responsible with the tax dollars we collect. I think that right-sizing it, our board has already voluntarily reached out to some other member districts. We submitted that public comment to the task force committee and said, we're willing to get bigger. Do I think that we could get bigger by 4 more districts? No, but could we add another district or 2 on that geographically made sense? Yes, the SU board said they're willing to do that. What we got to make certain, though, is that we're providing the right size not to get to systems that rely on middle management bureaucrats in order to oversee that accountability measure. And I worry about if we get too big and don't have the right size, we're going to result in a lot more middle management in order to oversee those things. And that, to me, is not how we do our best work. I also think that one of the things that we should be doing is taking a really hard look at, what is the right size in regards to management at the SUSD level. If you go to my website, you're not going to see a transportation coordinator or someone that oversees my operations. You're going to see a fairly lean, mean machine where we expect folks to work incredibly hard and be in schools.
Can I ask one more question? Earlier, it came up that some of the choice high schools in the area are doing dual enrollment with Dartmouth.
Meanwhile, you have one AP Calc student. You said you were working on an agreement because I don't think soon we're going to let them leave the state with those dollars.
Well, Dartmouth College is early college, so in regards to Act 73, I don't think it hits anything in regards to early college or how those dollars flow. Our kids also have an opportunity to do that too through Dartmouth, and some have taken part. The student we talked about here earlier, just within his schedule, he didn't think that commute made sense for him. You know, in regards to our AP courses, we're right now looking at, right-sizing the numbers in those courses as well, but also try to provide as many opportunities as we can while we try to also attract neighboring tuition students. One of the things I've said to some senators in Montpelier is, one of the things I've really valued by having some choice districts in this SU is it forced this building to get better. Because there was some competition provided that we need to take a hard look in the mirror and say, for the White River Unified District student, we need to do better. But we could use those tuition dollars to reinvest to do better. But it also, we had to say, why is it that we're not attracting the student and the students driving by us to go to another public or private high school? And we had to do a lot of soul searching to say, there are some things we can do better. And I'm proud of the fact that I think we have been making a lot of gains to do those things better. And what that has resulted in is we had about 35 tuition students in 2020. We now have 83. And at 19.9, that's a major buck of change that we can reinvest back in the system, which has also helped keep these guys' tax base down. There's some materials in there that you were provided a lot of materials about our academic data indicators and also our finance data indicators. Within this SU, South Royalton taxpayers are paying 12.1% less in their tax rate than they were 5 years ago. That's way different than the 40% average I heard during the December 1 tax letter. There are some things that can be learned. This just idea that unilaterally getting bigger without really researching what makes sense, and frankly, holding people like me accountable, I don't think we're gonna see it's gonna work. Superintendents need to be held accountable. We all wanna be, I wanna be, and I'll tell you, leadership is important. From the board perspective to the superintendent perspective down to anyone that's working in the building. You'll see here, I hope you got it, as you walk through the halls, we are committed to kids. And that we're flexible. It's all hands on deck. We're gonna work together and we're gonna do what's best serves kids. That comes with accountability. And we just gotta figure out how to better hold folks in my position accountable, including me.
I just want to say, from an education policy perspective, it does concern me if we start to lose AP courses on a campus and encourage kids to do dual enrollment. And that was never the intention. We have to worry about that, especially from an equity perspective, who can get off campus and go somewhere else for those classes. So it does concern me.
I can't speak for why Thetford Academy made that choice or Sharon Academy. I don't oversee them. At this campus, we're still offering AP courses, but I will also say, as someone who is a first college graduate, generation graduate, dual enrollment for some students when I was the principal in Williamstown and their ability to go to Norwich was amazing. I thought that provided a pipeline and a building of trust so that we could foster first generation college graduates, where I don't know if they would have taken the opportunity to pursue that on their own if they didn't have that high school to come back to safely. So I agree with you. It's not supposed to be replacing AP, but I would also say that it does serve a lot of students, specifically students who might not have the family support or wraparound support from a greater family network to get to college, allow them to have that opportunity to set sail toward it.
Other questions? I think you've covered everything I had in my head. How are your kids, I think one question I asked it, when you get students coming from 8th grade to high school, what percentage are at grade level for, how are you doing with grade level for math and reading?
So across the SU, Senator, we are above the state average in mathematics out of 5 out of the 7 grades tested. In literacy, it's 3 out of 8. We're doing some work in literacy right now, and I'm giving you all the different grades across, that are assessed. We're close in some of those others, but you heard some of the teachers talk about a real focus on literacy. There has been a major focus in literacy in this SU over the last 4 years to address that. And in science, we're 12% above the state average in science in all 3 different grades assessed.
Anything else?
Thank you.
So
Thanks.
we're taking a...
Do you have a little break? Is the band and chorus still?
Kids are here.
We're ready to go.
Civics class. Civics? Teacher, seen the blue shirt.
Okay, we are live, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Seth Bongartz. I represent the Bennington Senate District, and I'm chair of the Senate Education Committee. I'll have the other members introduce themselves in a minute. Whoops. Oh, we're not live. Okay. You have to hear me say it again. Okay, now we're live. Okay. So again, my name is Seth Bongartz. I represent the Bennington Senate District, and I'm chair of the Senate Education Committee. We had a couple of members had to leave early. Senator Ram Hinsdale and Senator Hashim were here earlier. And just to give you a quick overview, we have visited 5 districts across the state toward the end of the summer, or now nearing winter here. We tried last year a couple of times to get out of the building during the session to visit schools, and because it is so hectic, we just gave up. It's not going to happen. So we're doing it now before the session starts to get to interact with schools and with members of the community. We started off, we visited Canaan School, one of the tiniest schools in Vermont, up in the northeast corner of the state. If there's a school in Vermont that is truly small by necessity, it's probably Canaan. That was incredibly informative. And then we went next to Woodstock, and then we went to Rutland, we went to CVU, and now we're here for our fifth of the 5. And at each stop, we've had a student panel, teachers panel, and today we had a principals panel from across the district. And what we're really trying to do is step back a little bit from the immediacy of the issue a lot of you have in your mind, and focus on how we provide excellent educational opportunity for every Vermont student. That's what we're talking about here, is providing excellent opportunity for every Vermont student. And we tried to, with these visits, do it in different settings, very different settings. And today we're in a school serving a very rural area, and so the sort of focus here has been a little bit, how do you achieve excellent educational opportunity? What are the challenges? What are the opportunities? And what are the schools actually doing to embrace every student? And we're hearing loud and clear across all of these districts that that's actually what's going on. We heard it loud and clear here today, the notion of embracing every student and trying to provide the kind of opportunity that we're looking for. So we've ended each one of these with an opportunity for the public to come in and speak to the committee, because you don't always get that opportunity. And by the way, one of the great things about what we've been able to do with these is it's during the session, we don't get to hear as much from students, from teachers, and even principals as we do more like superintendents and some of the advocacy organizations. So it's really been wonderful to be able to take the time and hear from the whole range of people much closer to the ground than we sometimes get a chance to do. But that's one of the reasons that we did it. So with that, and so we have, as we said, we have enough people signed up so that we think we can get away with doing 3 minutes, which is a little bit more than we've done in some. But why don't we start by introducing.
Hello, Steve Heffernan, Addison County District.
Good afternoon, David Weeks, representing Rutland County, and I live in Proctor.
Terry Williams, also representing Rutland County, and I live in Poultney.
for what it's worth. I live in Manchester and you live in?
Bristol.
Bristol. So with that, I think, has anybody left anything out that I should have mentioned? No? Okay. Then why don't we take our first witness. I'm just going to do them in the order that they're got put in front of me here. And by the way, this chair is for the person speaking. That chair is for the on-deck speaker. So I'll keep trying to give the on-deck person the cue to come up because it then makes it move a little bit more quickly. And I think we would have you stand and use the microphone. But with the on-deck, has worked pretty well in other ones. So we're going to start with Greg Hughes. Yeah, Greg Hughes. And then on deck is Joshua, boy, okay, you know, okay. So by the way, in each instance, if you could just start by giving us your name and your town of residence. Then you have 3 minutes. And we're trying to, again, keep this focus, we're trying to focus on providing excellent educational opportunities for every Vermont child.
We're good to go. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, senators, and thank you for coming to the White River Valley. My name is Greg Hughes. I live in Bethel, and I'd like to point out to you that the White River Valley Supervisory Union is a case study that fully supports the recommendations of the Vermont Redistricting Task Force. We had been 2 supervisory unions, and we merged into 1. We voluntarily closed 4 high schools. Bethel and Royalton formed a unified school district, and our results, my guess at this point is, you've realized they've been quite impressive. Our enrollments are up, they're way up. Our cost per student is down. Our academic offerings have expanded to the point where we now offer AP courses, which we hadn't done in the past, and most importantly, our tax rates have stabilized. The taxpayers in Bethel and Royalton have not had the tax increases that have plagued the rest of the state for the past 5 years. Do we still need help? Yes, we do still need help. And that's where the cooperative education service agreements that were recommended by the task force would help us. It would help us down the road in the process of reducing our special ed expenditures, our professional development expenditures, and our office expenditures. There's a lot of cumulative savings that can be generated for us in this process. So I'd like to repeat that the Vermont Redistricting Task Force was successful. They've given the state a very viable path forward, and their recommendations should be seriously considered by the state. Thank you.
Thank you. On deck is Sarah Root.
Thank you for meeting with us today. Coming from a perspective of a recent transplant and also a parent and a WRVSU school board member, my name is Joshua Badukowicz. I live in Stockbridge, Vermont, a small town of hovering around 800 people. We moved from Boston a year and a half ago after a year of BPS, where a great reputation for higher education, not so much public education. Firsthand saw my 5-year-old son get bullied and watch his beautiful, wonderful personality be muted. We toured here 2 years ago in Stockbridge and met Lindy Stetson, where she shared this environment of a cousin-like atmosphere, and that's exactly what my son has experienced. Kids of all ages uniting with one another and bonding and acting more like cousins and family members, and older kids mentoring younger kids as a school board, and just watching him absolutely thrive in this environment. And so haven't we as a family. Just in this town, there is many transplants that are similar story that I think is being overlooked, that people are coming here by choice, young people with families, something that Vermont is very aware of. We're getting older, we need fresh blood in young people in this community, and that's what we found as we've been embraced by this small local town. of Stockbridge. And as a school board member, I can say confidently that WRVSU is not part of the problem. We are part of the solution. We are small, scrappy, but efficient. Our district spends below the state per pupil average, and our taxes stay stable thanks to responsible WRVSU leadership. Our district is financially responsible for the fiscal year of 2026. Our projected tax impact is just 0.0106% in Stockbridge. For schools, our schools provide students with access to health care, dental care, mental health services right on site. Otherwise, we'd have to be traveling mountains in order to get these services. Instead of addressing the true drivers of rising costs in health care, healthcare and insurance systems are really the driving force of the increased taxes that we find. And also, we need to look at the tax system as a whole, especially our property values and how we fund education. 60 to 75-minute rides of unsupervised bus rides away from their communities and families is not the answer for our kids. Our kids who have just gotten through COVID, we don't need to put this generation through even more. That's all I have time for. Thank you very much. And I have much
And Hannah Prince is on deck.
Hi. My name is Sarah Root, and I come to you today as chair of the Stratford School Board and a member of the White River Valley Supervisory Union. The RSU is a high-functioning supervisory union, as I believe you have seen today. I believe the reason we are successful is because of the type of leadership our team provides. We support our faculty, help by giving them time to collaborate with each other, to learn and to troubleshoot. Our faculty has data about their students that I wish that when I had been a primary teacher, and they work collaboratively and they help our students excel. We work together across the SU. We support each other across the SU, and we learn from each other across the SU. Creating large districts and SUs will not solve the economic challenges in our state, and there is no data to support this. The governor and the Secretary of Education have not provided any research to support their claims of cost savings. What it will do is create chaos and burn out our SU staff, and all that will negatively affect the learning outcomes of our students. I totally believe the redistricting task force intended to create up to 3 maps when they started in August. The reality that they reluctantly learned was that forced mergers and huge districts would not work and would not save money and would not increase student outcomes. The governor and the legislative leadership can say that it will, but they are wrong, and they can't show us data that shows that it will work. I am a 7th-generation Vermonter. I graduated from Newton School in Stratford. I graduated from Montpelier High School in Montpelier and the University of Vermont. I taught elementary school for 14 years in Vermont and New Hampshire. I then went on to work for the National Education Association in New Hampshire, and then eventually to the NEA nationally. I have been involved in my whole life in some part of the educational system. I believe in Vermont. What the governor and the Secretary of Education have presented will not solve economic issues in Vermont. It is short-sighted and frankly will hurt Vermont's small towns, which make up most of Vermont. I will fight to save our small rural schools. I believe that the redistricting task force delivered us a workable solution for Vermont. Please do not support the governor's proposal. Make him show us the projected savings and outcomes and stand with the redistricting task force. Thank you.
And Carrie Caudette-Delalo is on deck.
Hi there, folks. My name is Hannah Prince, and I'm coming from Stockbridge. We've lived here for 9 years now. We had an older child that finished out school with Stockbridge, and we now have our 8-year-old over at Stockbridge. I cannot say enough. We come from Louisiana, and I came from a 5A school myself, thousands of students feeling like a number. What I've received here in Stockbridge and the surrounding region, it's just a real true feeling of community. I'm part of the PTO as well as the Farm and Forest community initiative that we have. We're starting that and the kids are excited. We have educators that are excited to carry on and go on with this program. I really ask that you guys consider our communities and just the real value of community. Yeah, I really thank you guys very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Before you start, just keep this going. Kathy Galuzzo is on deck. And while I'm speaking, I'll note that Senator Becca White has joined us and is here for the public comment portion of the day. So you're up.
My name is Carrie Cowett-Delalo. I'm a retired special education teacher, and I was, in my last role as a public school teacher, I was the department chair of special education at Spalding High School in Barre. I live in Chelsea, where I'm on the select board. I'm not here as a select board member, I'm here as a community member and somebody who's very concerned about what's happening to our small rural schools. I'm probably going to echo what most of the other people have already spoken to here, but I don't know that you would find many people in Chelsea who regrets the decision to not fight the closure of the high school in Chelsea. I think the high school was the heart of the community, and generations of families attended. There's so much that was lost. It was the heart. It was the absolute heart of our town, where people gathered for sports events and arts events and musical productions. It's so fragmented now. It's so fragmented. There was a family that in the first year of the consolidation, I knew a family that had a child in elementary school, middle school, and high school. And both parents worked. One of them was an educator. So the logistics of getting those 3 children to school, you want to talk about impact on education. You want to talk about how exhausted kids are by the time they get to school after spending time on buses and time at the end of the day on buses, not with their families, not in their school community. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. There are so many things, you know, I watched, though I was the department chair, I had a caseload of 26 students who were in out-of-district placements. 26 students cost the Barre School District $2.3 million a year. I had students that were placed in programs as far as Alabama. I had a student in Massachusetts and Connecticut because the communities in Vermont couldn't sustain or they couldn't maintain the needs of those children. So rather than, I just feel like if communities came together to pool their resources, but not dismantle their schools, they could be doing so much more for children who need more, who need something else. The scores aren't going to go up because you put a kid on a bus for a longer period of time. The schools aren't going to improve because you've gotten, parents worn down from having to work all day and having to drive the distances that they have to go to the many different schools that their children are attending. I just feel like, as the woman who spoke before me and the woman from Stratford said, yeah, the heart, consider the heart of these communities. Consider what you're dismantling when you take away those schools, please. Thank you.
And Hallie Mendall is on deck.
All right. Hello, I'm Kathy Galuzzo. I am lifelong resident of Tunbridge, Vermont, and I'm also the White River Valley Supervisory Union Chair and Chair of the Tunbridge School Board. So if you guys have any questions for me, please ask. But I would like you to consider not just the long bus rides for students. For me, it was really important to me to participate in all of my children's activities like basketball games and after-school programs, and to be able to be there and be a supportive parent. Most of us people who live in a small community commute for work to somewhere. So a lot of times the school, if we're putting kids on bus rides further away. That puts them further away from where we work. So now parents are not able to participate or join in any of those things because now it's even further away. So it doesn't seem fair that that would be asked of us. And I think that if you take a look at our supervisory union, we do a really good job of working together. Our towns, I've been doing this for 20 years now as a school board member, so that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Hudson, I can't quite read it, Rainey is on deck, and I will also note that Senator Clarkson has joined us, sitting here to listen, along with Senator White.
Ready? Hi, I'm Hallie Mandel. I'm the president of the Stockbridge PTO, local business owner and a lifelong Vermont resident. I grew up attending a rural school and am here to ensure that my children have the same opportunity. Our school is far more than a place where lessons are taught. It is where children are nurtured, supported, and known as individuals. It is the heart of our town, where families gather, community events are held, and children grow up feeling seen and valued. In a rural community like ours, the school is the last remaining public institution that connects people. Closing or merging it would not simply reorganize education, it would fundamentally weaken the fabric of our town and the learning environment for our children. From a fiscal standpoint, our school is run responsibly. Our per pupil spending is reasonable and reflects the realities of rural education, not excess. We have been careful stewards of public funds, and there is no evidence that closing our school would result in meaningful long-term tax savings for our town. Most importantly, this decision directly affects the daily lives and well-being of our children. My own children are 7 and 10 years old. Forcing them to spend more than 2 hours each day on a bus, often without supervision, is neither developmentally appropriate nor safe. That time comes at the expense of learning, family connection, rest, and participation in extracurricular events. Long, unsupervised commutes place an unnecessary burden on young children and undermine the conditions they need to succeed. At its core, this decision is about how we choose to educate our children and what kind of future we are building for them. Education works best when children feel safe, supported, and connected to their school community. Investing in accessible community-based education affirms that every child matters, regardless of geography. Strong rural schools help raise engaged citizens, sustain local communities, and ensure Vermont's future is rooted in care, responsibility, and opportunity. Thank you for your time.
Katie Stiles is on deck. Now you're on.
Hi there. My name is Hudson Rainey. I'm 18 years old, and I've lived in Windsor, Vermont my entire life. Last November, voters asked for property tax relief. They did not ask for a top-down approach for consolidating education system. We learned our lesson with Act 46 about 10 years ago, where yes, it saved money in some cases, but in other cases it didn't. Yet, Democratic leadership and the governor passed Act 73 without addressing those fundamental costs, the cost drivers, and that is continuing to drive up our property taxes. Voters are going to be pissed. I can guarantee you that at the polls, people will remember that the taxes go up every 2 years because we've kept kicking this can down the road. We need to actually address the cost drivers and not keep the consolidation isn't going to save money, and the BOSES model is an option. So let's take that option and run with it. That will actually give some immediate tax relief to our constituents. Thank you.
And before you start,
Sana?
Okay, good. You're coming. Okay.
Hi.
Now you're on.
My name is Katie Stiles, and I'm a parent on the PTO, a part of our Farm and Forest Initiative, and a business owner in Stockbridge, Vermont. And I'm deeply concerned that the most consequential debate about public education in our state has been reduced almost entirely to finances. particularly when the finance assumptions being cited don't reference what is actually happening in a rural district like ours, which is one that is small by necessity while also being one of the largest geographically. In the WRVSU, 5 of 10 towns saw decreases in residential tax rates in fiscal year 26, ranging from 12.6% to 1.1%. And 2 of those towns, Stockbridge and Rochester, also reduced per pupil spending this year. And I know this because I attend our local town meeting and budget vote and hear about the work our school admins actively do to operate our budgets, to avoid overage penalties, and to deliver for our kids. The claim that small rural schools are driving rising education costs is simply not supported by the concrete data from our district. Just as important is who our rural schools serve. Increasingly, our school communities are made up.
It's always just 2.
Increasingly, our school communities are made up of families who have recently relocated to Vermont. Families directly contributing to the state's modest population growth at a time when Vermont is rapidly aging and actively trying to attract and retain younger residents. Eliminating access to local schools puts that fragile progress at risk and undermines one of the strongest incentives for families to settle here. I relocated to Vermont from New York City 11 years ago and now raise my son and operate 3 businesses here, all of which are among the many contributing to the $750 million in additional statewide education funding. And we do so willingly because we believe in a strong public education system. But that investment must include maintaining access to well-functioning rural schools. Closing rural schools that are lowering per pupil costs, reinvesting locally, and sustaining their communities based on arbitrary classroom sizes as proposed by Act 73 would not just harm families and our kids, it would actively weaken the very rural communities whose residents and businesses are helping to support Vermont's education system as a whole. It feels telling that our rural district is among the last to be visited in this process, while potentially being one of the first to feel the consequences if these proposals move forward. Rural communities are often discussed in the abstract because policy is shaped by averages, efficiency models, rather than lived realities. So here is the lived reality you should take away from the WRVSU. Our school should be a model district. We have fiscally responsible leadership who are fiercely dedicated to our kids and an involved and engaged community committed to our local schools. Thank you.
And Teal Salon is on deck.
Members of the Senate Education Committee, thank you so much for being here today. I come to you before you as an educator, parent, member of the Stratford School Board and White River Valley Supervisory Union, an invested member of my community. Our school is the heartbeat of our community. I'm a transplant, originally having spent 12 years in Alaska, where I was witness to education being gutted. It was absolutely heartbreaking seeing the lesser care and attention extended to the students that were attending. Education was a factor in my move when I was offered a position here. I understand that this attempt at education reform is centered around saving costs. While I agree that costs and spending are high when education reform is driven by cost savings and not improving our education system, then the basis is already flawed. High healthcare costs and other driving factors must also be addressed at the root. Saving money is the byproduct of a thoughtful, measured reform process. It happens when you work with communities to figure out the best pathway forward, not by trying to force a half-baked vision. Efficiency and evolving our education system should not be an afterthought. Where is the evidence that the governor's proposal will actually work? The process is causing harm now and will cause harm in the future, whether it's forcing longer bus rides for students or results in a loss of local school services. The long-term impacts are not measurable by simple metrics. We need an educated Vermont to endure and thrive for the future. This attempt at reform is highly unpopular, and yet the Governor and Secretary of Education continue to push it in spite of the evidence that it will not work. Vermonters should not be treated like children who don't want to take medicine that they're told is good for them when they see evidence to the contrary over and over again. Vermonters are educated, considerate, and measured, from our farmers to artisans and tradesfolk to academics, and sometimes a combination of all of those things. Each bring to the table their own wisdom and perspective, especially those in rural communities. If you want to look at efficiencies and savings, why not have an assessment done to determine existing models that do this well? My supervisory union is a stellar example of how this can work while keeping our rural schools running. I am proud to be a part of that union. I have test scores right here showing us outperforming Vermont averages as a result of all the hard work our leadership and members have done to bring us here. As an educator, I am baffled by the Governor and Secretary of Education's determination to not let go of this proposal when the redistricting task force has already taken our feedback into consideration and offered a tangible and workable way forward. Please do not support the Governor's proposal. Please hear what we are telling you. Those of us who see positive results every day as a result of what our supervisory union accomplishes, because we pool resources and coordinate as a unit. Thank you so much for your time.
Tyler LaGrange is on deck.
Hello, I'm Teal Sallin. I am a parent of a middle schooler and an elementary schooler in Bethel, and I am the after-school club coordinator at the middle school. Thank you for opening the floor to public comment. I'd like to talk a little bit about what happens after school, about what happens after the bell rings, when kids leave, how long that bus ride is. Many people have mentioned that. I actually went to Woodstock, which I think you guys have visited, you mentioned. And they had a very robust after-school program when I was there. I participated in theater. There was like every single sport. But those bus rides were really long, and kids who did not have parents who could help them with transportation had limited access to those things. And having programs in a smaller community really gives more access to kids. Here we're able to take advantage of the Tri-Valley bus as well to get kids home. And it's easier for parents to pick their kids up from a program that ends at 4:30 if they live close by. So I just would want to know that there was some thought given to what those opportunities are going to be for kids going forward if they had a longer distance from the school. I think that I have heard people talk about after-school programs a little bit condescendingly as if it's a secondary thing, but I'd like to challenge the notion that our duty to our children ends at the end of the school day. So much of what education is and what teachers do and why education is so complex is because a lot of that is allo-parenting. And studies show that the more consistent, trustworthy caregivers that a human being has in their youth, the more well-adjusted and successful an adult they will be. And that is what teachers are doing all day, and that is what we can do by providing a safe environment for kids to pursue their interests, to get exercise, to solve problems, to experience opportunities to step up and be a leader that they might not otherwise take. I actually maybe have time for this story. I had one kid in my program who felt passed over for leading a game, and the advisor gently suggested that we needed to see some more leadership from that student. The student was upset and didn't seem to understand what that meant to us. I asked the student what they thought leadership meant, and they pointed to a definition on their phone. So I said, okay, let's put that away. Humor me and do a thought experiment and turn towards your classmates with curiosity. What are they doing? What are they thinking? How are they experiencing this game that means so much to you? It was D&D, just so you know, which is very creative and fosters storytelling as well as collaboration, cooperation, and leadership. So by the end of that day, this kid agreed and did what I had asked, and 2 weeks later was DMing their own game. This is a child who is often quiet, reserved, does not interact with their peers. I know this child. I've known this child for years. Their family has experienced tragedy. There is a lot for that kid to deal with in their life. And they have behavioral problems during the school day. This was an opportunity for them to experience a different way of being and moving through the world that I don't think that they could have had if they had to instead get on a bus, go home to a dark house, get off that bus at 5 o'clock and wait for their parent to get home. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. And by the way, this committee is very interested in after school. So
that's very encouraging. Thank you.
Okay. Dana Grossman is on deck.
Hello, my name is Tyler LaGrange, and I live in Royalton. My family has been here in rural Vermont for just 5 years now. One kid graduated a year or so ago, and the other is currently a junior. In most ways, these decisions won't have much impact on me, and it would be easy to just let everyone else make these decisions for me. But I feel compelled to speak out for what I've seen working since we've been here. My oldest is now in college, pursuing their artistic passions. My youngest is here, is more interested in learning than they've ever been, and participates in band, you saw them here, bowling and drama and more. I don't know how much the day-to-day general education would change if further consolidation happened, but I do know that if I had to drive 2 or 3 or 4 towns away to get them to all their practices and matches and whatever activities, that would be significantly harder to deal with. And they'd also be less inclined to participate in as many things because it's just a lot of overhead for them too. There's just nothing that can alleviate enough of that, and it's 100% going to mean less opportunities for our kids and more stress and associated costs for parents. That's point one. My second point, I just want to say that I've written to Superintendent Canarney once or twice a year, often with something that I'm a bit agitated about. He's written me back every single time, and I felt heard every single time. That says a lot about him in general, the right person for the right job, but there's also just a limit to how much that scales. You guys know that too, because I've actually written letters to my congressmen, congress members, and you guys, and I haven't gotten responses back every time. So it just doesn't scale. But one other thing I just want to point out that stands out is there was a police-involved gun-related event that happened overnight a year or 2 ago that just filled parents with anxiety. I brought my kid to school that morning. I'm a little hesitant, and Canarney was standing out front of the school, and I was able to shake his hand and chat with him for a few minutes, and that small gesture of him being here when that was going on made a world of difference that day. So even if our Superintendent Canarney is in charge of 2 or 3 times as many schools and towns, as great as he's been, there's just a limit to the availability and his ability to be there for schools and parents and teachers and faculty and school boards and events and so on. I get that you're in a tough position between governor having grand plans and Vermonters needing financial relief, and I get that you've put significant effort into the bill at hand, but I have far more belief that Canarney and this supervisory union can provide informed guidance towards viable fixes. The details I've gleaned from the bill currently as it stands has way more Phil Scott than Superintendent Canarney, and that's not a plan I can get behind, and I just don't think it's good for our towns or many of the other small towns across Vermont. Thank you.
Dustin Ray is on deck. Yvonne.
I'm Dana Grossman, and my husband Dan and I have lived in Thetford for 53 years, and both of us have held positions with the Thetford Town School District and Thetford Academy board roles and various other roles. Both our daughters went all the way through Thetford schools, graduating from Thetford Academy in '94 and '99. We are still involved in the schools because they do more than educate our students. As many of the previous speakers have said, they are the fabric of our communities. I would like to commend the White River Valley School District for holding this meeting today. I would like to commend the Senate Education Committee for your willingness to get out of the State House and around the state and hold these listening sessions. And I would very much like to commend the task force for its hard, thoughtful, data-driven work, and for all the reasons that the previous speakers have said, I wholeheartedly also support their recommendation.
And Margaret McLean is on deck.
Howdy, my name is Dustin Ray, and I live in Stratford, Vermont. And actually, because of my accent, they suggested I live in South Stratford, Vermont. So, yeah, I just come to you. I'm also a school board member for Stratford, and I just, you know, in our supervisory union, I've seen how close relationships and local knowledge directly improve outcomes for students, personally. Administrators know our schools, our families, and our communities. When a problem arises, it's addressed quickly, often before it becomes a larger issue. A district, as it grows larger, decision-making becomes more centralized and less responsive. Policies that may work in urban or suburban settings often don't translate well to rural communities like ours. Distance, both geography and relational, make it harder for students and families to be seen and heard. I'm concerned that this act could unintentionally weaken what already works well in our small supervisory union. Well, it's not too small, really. I urge you to protect the local governance structures that allow schools to remain responsive, connected, and student-centered, especially in rural Vermont. I really appreciate, I know you guys have got a gargantuan task ahead of you, and I really appreciate you coming out and listening to us. And I will say, like, I've heard other members that came up here to this microphone. You know, I just want to reiterate everything they've been saying. I mean, it's this could change the fabric of our state. You know, not just in the education realm, but yeah, appreciate your time and thank you.
Thank you. And David Scholes is on deck.
Margaret McLean from Peacham, Vermont. I am a steering committee member of the Rural School and Community Alliance. The Alliance represents 104 towns, like the towns in White River Valley Supervisory Union. These towns have all voted to join the Alliance, either by a vote of their school board or a vote of their select board. The Alliance has been listening to these towns since January. We also attended the task force meetings and read the input of the over 5,000 Vermonters who participated in the task force. The message is clear if you're listening. Vermonters are not afraid of change. Vermonters recognize the issues of quality and cost need to be addressed. Vermonters are willing to step up and help solve those issues by working in partnership with the state. Vermonters do not expect to be told what to do and forced into merger. Vermonters wish to step up and partner with the state. We need the state to be willing to partner back. Thank you.
Betsy Donahue is on deck.
Good afternoon. I'm David Scholes from Brattleboro, and you all look very familiar to me. I spent many hours watching your committee work, and I have seen and heard a lot of the things that you've heard. So I'm really grateful that you're here now and hearing from parents and teachers. And hearing these beautiful children who gave me goosebumps when I came in the door. Typically, you don't hear these voices, and this is really Vermont. I was a school board member in Brattleboro for 14 years. The last 4 were on the merged school board. I was the chair for the 2 years of the 2 COVID years. And during that time, since we merged, we were force merged. And during that time, our student numbers have declined, student performance has declined, students' emotional connection with the schools has declined. All this is statistically verifiable. our budget document now is so thick that it's just, the information is unavailable to the citizens. No one can understand what's going on. I have to rely on Public Assets Institute to find out what the per pupil spending is in the schools in my district. So you have demonstrated how to work in a bipartisan manner this year, and I'm really grateful to see that, really happy to see that. And I hope you can do that again this coming session. So I have a question more than a statement, and that's, will you take up the Cooperative Education Services model when you start the session in January? I asked the question of Senator Hashim last night at one of our school board meetings, and he wants to, but he said it's up to the vice chair and the chair what you take up. So I want to ask you, will you take that up immediately? That's the first recommendation from the task force, and it's the only one that I've heard in 40 years, more than 40 years of being involved in education in Vermont. It's the only idea I've ever heard that actually makes any sense as far as saving money and creating a possibility of greater student performance. Thank you.
Thank you. Before you start, Kurt Albee is on deck. Now you're on.
So Betsy Donahue, I am a parent here in South Royalton. I myself actually grew up in a rural school in Vermont, not here in South Royalton necessarily, but a few towns up in Northfield. And I remember going through my high school experience wondering if there was something else out there for me. Being a member of a rural community, being a member of a small school, I could see that there were opportunities that I did not have. I could see that there were things that students in larger schools were getting that I wasn't. But I will say this, what I had in a small school was people who were invested in me. I had people who were invested in seeing that I succeed and that I developed the skills that I needed to succeed. I went on to win multiple state championships in sports and to attend college, getting a master's degree from MIT in mechanical engineering, coming from a small school in the state of Vermont. So my husband and I, we both have advanced degrees. We moved away for a number of years. And when we decided to come back, because we knew that was part of our plan, we knew we wanted a rural school. We knew we wanted a place where our kids would be supported, where they would have people who were invested in their success. And we have found that here. I still think about what else is out there for my kids. What opportunities might they have somewhere else that they don't have here? And I always come back to the families that we are here with in this community. And I don't want to lose that. The value of that sense of community of those families is absolutely critical to the success of our kids and the success of our towns. So, I heard you say at the beginning of the session here, what this bill is all about, this act is all about, is excellent opportunity for every student. I don't think bigger schools are the solution to that. The solution to that is investing in our kids and meeting them where they are at to provide the opportunities they need to succeed. And that's what I want to leave you with today.
Thank you. And Asia, can't get the middle name, but Kennett is on deck.
Good afternoon. My name is Kurt Albee. I live in South Stratford, to differentiate it from Stratford. I've lived there for 56 years. I sort of ended up there by accident in 1969, and my wife and I decided to stay because we found out fairly early on that the elementary school there and the people who worked there were really special. And we decided to stay and raise our children there. And I think it was the best decision that we've made. My kids both graduated from the Newton School, incredibly well prepared for high school. They both went to Hanover High School. They both attended the University of Vermont and have successful careers. I have 2 grandchildren at the University of Vermont now and 2 children in the school system in Burlington. I went to a small high school in Arlington. My family moved to Vermont in 1960. That was probably the best move that my family ever made. I loved my high school. I think there were a total of 140 students in the 7 through 12 at that point in 1960. But school And when I graduated from college, I taught high school social studies for 3 years in Vermont. And my experience, that experience and my experience in high school and my experience with my children at the Newton School, education is about teaching and learning. Teaching kids to learn, and at the same time, and I found this early on as a teacher, learning from your students, learning how to teach. Bigger is not better. Schools are about teachers. We need to recruit the best teachers. We need to pay them. And that necessarily has not everything to do with the size of the school, obviously, in my experience. When I stopped my teaching career in 1971, I worked in construction for the rest of my working life. And I'm holding here an editorial from the Valley News on the 6th of December that says, to state the obvious thing, something is not a plan. Now, that was Governor Scott's description of we have to do something. And I can tell you from working in construction for 47 years, no plan is a plan for disaster. And I would, with all due respect to the Secretary of Education, who's also said in an adjoining article, we did our homework. Well, I'll put my teacher hat on again and say, I might give her an incomplete.
Jamie Daniel is on deck.
Hi, my name is Asha Labesha Kennett. I'm a first-generation American. I moved to Rochester, Vermont 26 years ago from the Boston area. Graduated from Rochester High School and went to Middlebury College, but then left with no intention of coming back. And somehow I returned. And even stranger, married a dairy farmer. And now we raise our family in Rochester, Vermont. Our oldest daughter is 13. She's at Middlebury Union Middle School. We are lucky enough to take advantage of school choice, and for her it's perfect because she will be able to take advantage of the agricultural programs that they offer, and her plan is to go to Cornell and then come back and run our dairy farm. The number of dairy farmers in Vermont is dwindling, so we really encourage her to do that. Our 9-year-old really had a hard time during COVID, and so we ended up moving her to Stockbridge Elementary School, which for her was perfect. The small-knit community, her quirkiness came back. She really thrived in that setting. My 7-year-old is at Rochester, where he is able to have his reading and a grade above. He also has medical challenges and has a 504. I know that all schools are required to abide by the 504, but our school being so small, they've really been able to work with me and meet all his medical challenges as they come. Our 5-year-old is a thriver. He will do anywhere. He's never met a stranger, and so if you keep track, because sometimes I lose count, there's 4 kids, and out of them, only 1 would kind of do well anywhere. So I'm a small dairy farmer. We've been told constantly that we have to milk more than 100 cows. We're not going to survive. We're not feasible. And yet somehow we found a way. We're creative. We come up with ways to survive. We diversify. We find a way. This morning I was feeding calves, and I had a calf that checked all the boxes, right? She should have been doing fine, but I just felt like something was off. And I said to my husband, I said, listen, something's off with her. Her name is Starstruck. Something's off with Starstruck, okay? She's not right. And sure enough, 20 minutes later, I see him tearing across the yard. Even though she checked all the boxes, she was having a medical emergency. She almost died. I saved that calf because I knew her baseline, right? I was able to meet her needs, even though she checked all the boxes. She should have been okay. But I knew her baseline. I'm a small farm, and we're able to survive because we can be creative. We can find other ways. And I feel like if small businesses in Vermont, small farms in Vermont can come up with those ways to be creative, then you, our elected officials, can also be creative and come up with ways to save our small schools and protect our children. Thank you.
Maybe Nancy. No.
We're having a hard time with the handwriting on this next one.
Sharon. Maybe.
Somebody from Sharon.
Nancy.
Nancy, or is that an M?
Nancy.
And what's that at the end? This one.
From Sharon.
Oh, okay. Okay. Then Kim Moore is on deck. That one's easier. Okay.
Hi.
You're on.
I welcome the opportunity to speak with you all. I'm Jamie Daniel. I've been a member of the WRUD School Board since last March. And I joined the school board. I was encouraged to by people in my community, partly because of what we had heard might be happening with our schools. And I'm glad to be here. I really agree and welcome all the comments people have made previously about the impact of these potential changes on our children. What I want to address here is something that has also been brought up, which is the argument that somehow this is a financially good idea for our communities. This may seem like making a long story short, but let me give you a local example of how that seems to be false logic. 10 years ago, my now in-law family of a young couple moved here and bought a then dormant farm in Bethel. Where they were at that farm, they had their young son who was born. After that, the couple's in-law, brother-in-law, and my son, who was married to the brother-in-law, moved here because they wanted to be closer to that family and they wanted to be closer to that child. The child's parents moved here from a very busy West Coast community so that they could have their child go to local schools and small schools and contribute to a small community. Shortly after that, I bought a house here, moved here from Chicago when I retired. I was an educator for 40 years and moved here. Shortly after that, the couple's parents moved here. Why am I bringing that all up? Because all of us moved here, bought houses, and contribute to the community because of that one child having moved here so that he could go, his parents said that he could go to a small school and they could pick him up from school every day after school. Among the people that moved here, we now have 4 families, myself included, paying property tax, which all just went up. All of those people started 4 businesses among them. All of those businesses are contributing to the community and paying tax in the community. Several of those businesses have contributed to the Bethel Revitalization Project. One of them is a bar on Main Street in Bethel that I imagine a lot of people here might retire to after we have this hearing. And I know some people who are there pretty much every day, and it's part of a social life of the community. I'm bringing that up because all of us believe that we are contributing to a community that cherishes our children, allows our children to be part of cohorts that continue all the way from grade school up through high school, if possible. The young child who everybody moved here to support is now in 2nd grade. He has a cohort of kids he's been with the whole time. Some of them are farm kids, some of them are kids of professionals, some of them are kids that are struggling financially, others are fairly well off, and he's learned how to get along with everybody and support everybody, which to me is part of the Vermont way. So I really hope folks will think twice about whether this is a financially good solution for Vermont generally and for Bethel and South Royalton in particular. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity. Sorry, Kim Moore.
You're Kim, okay. So Eric Anderson is on deck.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to share our perspectives. You've heard a number of impassioned pleas from parents and education experts and been offered proof of how rural education can be a model for success for the rest of Vermont. I am the chair of the Stockbridge Trustees of Public Funds. I moved to Vermont in retirement after raising my family in 9 states and Canada. I'm here by choice and I love it here, as do my children. I'm not here to repeat what you've already heard, but to offer a different perspective about why our community school is critically important to our rural community and the fabric of our community. As you've heard, Stockbridge is a small and engaged rural community. One of the charges of the trustees of public funds is to help residents in need with funds that are pledged to the town by former residents. In our role, the trustees work closely with the principal of the Central School in Stockbridge to support families in need. Losing that close community tie will put families in need further at risk of falling between the cracks. Stockbridge supports education at all levels. The trustees support high school graduates with a congratulatory check when they graduate. We also have a tuition reimbursement program for secondary education. And we believe, as the town does, that education is important because it contributes back to Vermont. We need to have a strong a strong competitive workforce for the future, and the local community supports that in every way. The Central School is the heart of our town, supporting not only education, but also healthcare and social services, as you've heard before. It enables our community to support each other in invaluable and informal ways that a larger school just wouldn't enable. So please strongly consider the voices you've heard today as you move forward with education reform. Thank you.
Thank you. And Elaine Kearns is on deck.
All right. Thank you all for your time this afternoon. I'm Eric Anderson. I moved to Chelsea in 2001 and began teaching at the Chelsea School, teaching middle school and high school at that time, science. I started out there. I quickly fell in love with the town, with the families whose students I taught. A few years later, I met my wife, who was home visiting her family, and fell in love with her. She wasn't my wife then, but Sue Cruzy, who's sitting a few seats behind me, married us on the hill out behind our old farmhouse that we bought. So good to see you, Sue. Chelsea is a really special place, as I know a lot of people feel that way about these small towns. And our schools are essential to keeping not only the heart, but the backbone of these small rural communities. They provide so much for our families, and they provide so much for the communities as a whole. During the Act 46 time period, we in Chelsea did close our high school. It was incredibly painful. As someone involved in the school, it was a hard hat to wear, or multiple hats to wear, thinking about what is best for our community and what is best for our students. I ultimately became a reluctant supporter of closing our high school because seeing what opportunities our high school students needed, I felt the time was right for that. Any further closing of schools or consolidation for younger students, though, to me, seems very unjust and inappropriate. To put 7th, 8th, 6th graders on buses and send them far away from their hometowns for potential opportunities and potential savings does not seem worth the trade-offs. And those trade-offs are being close to home, being around people who know them and care about them, and the opportunities that our small towns and small schools offer. During Act 46, we visited larger schools. We looked at what they offered. We went to Manchester Middle School. They offered algebra to their middle school students at 7 a.m., and they projected it through video to other schools. We currently offer that in our small rural middle school. We sugar under a timber frame sugar house that our students built. I don't know what other schools have those opportunities. Just because we don't offer everything doesn't mean we're not offering a lot for our students and our families and our communities. So maintaining our rural schools is essential for our students and the fabric of Vermont. Thank you for your time.
And D. Jean Krause is on deck.
Hello, my name's Elaine Kearns. I live in Sharon. I have been a volunteer at the Sharon Elementary School for 35 years. I was on the school board for most of the 90s, so I've really been involved in the school. I see the kids from, used to be kindergarten, now pre-K, up through 6th grade, and can see the wonderful development of these children, especially the students who come in with behavioral and mental issues. They are supported so well in the small school. All the teachers know all the children. They walk in the hallways, and it doesn't matter what professional or support staff person is walking down the hall towards them. They know them, they greet them, and the students, besides learning arithmetic and spelling, they learn how to be good citizens. They are all part of the community of the school. The town has started a Sharon Health initiative that sponsors a monthly free luncheon, and every month a different classroom of students comes to the luncheon and interacts with the senior citizens. Now, if these students were far away, that would never happen. It's a wonderful opportunity for the townspeople to see the students and for the students to be with, for the most part, older adults, because it's at noon. The younger ones help decorate. They sit and talk to people. The older students help serve and prepare the food. Another indication of our community is our town just decided to float a $7 million bond of our small school so that we could bring the pre-K students from their falling down mobile homes or mobile classrooms that are way out of useful life and bring them into the school. Now, the town would not have done that if we thought our students were going elsewhere. One of the reasons people decided to do it was saying, well, if we improve our school, we show you that we want our school to succeed, we're gonna take on a $7 million bond to make that happen. I don't think that sending children on transportation for a long period of time can do anything but hurt them. As far as the Act 73, we have all been waiting for years to see what the alternative to healthcare nationally is, and it's never been presented. And in this atmosphere, why would we accept the governor's and the secretary's just assurance that this is going to save us money? It just does not work that way. We need to either see some proof, some real numbers of how it's going to help, or for us to say, well, maybe. But as far as community, it's very important. Thank you.
We're still good. Francie Slater is on deck.
My name is Gene Krause. I live in Bethel, and I am somewhat active in my community. Small town, small elementary school, but part of the White River Valley Supervisory Union that I think is just the right size. I think there is much to commend it as a model for what might work elsewhere in the state, because I want everybody in the state to have everything that our kids have. One of the things that I enjoy as a community-involved person is that I know these two women over here on a first-name basis. I know Jamie Canarney on a first-name basis. And when I have a concern from my community or about my school, they are accessible to me, all of them. And you know what that is. You have constituents with whom you are involved on a first-name basis. Sometimes they are a pain in the neck. I know that. But to be able to eyeball people, see their face when you raise a concern is critical. And so I want to put a word in for this not being too big, to be able to relate to one another, to be able to maintain local control, local involvement in the school. A long time ago, I heard a word, parsimony, defined not as kind of stinginess, but as the least amount that will really do. And that's how I look at taxes when I was on the Bethel Select Board. The least amount of taxes, but it's got to be enough that'll do the job. The least amount of busing, but enough that it will get the job done, and the job includes a good education. So I want to leave that with you, and I also want to ask, what happens to the schools we abandon? Sometimes for $1, they get turned over to the town. And now that building becomes an albatross on the town. And now we've got towns thinking about how do they put a couple $1 million into renovation of a building so that it can be useful. Those are side costs. Two costs that need to be addressed at the legislature that are not education: medical costs. We can't just accept our medical system we have now and expect that things are going to get better. You as senators have a responsibility to see that we do something about reducing medical costs for all of our citizens. And second, we fund our taxes with our schools with property taxes. Property taxes are a wealth tax. How much wealth do you have? How much is your property? Rather than a wealth tax, for many of us in Vermont, we are not property wealthy, but we may have better incomes. And an income tax is far more just, far less impactful on those at the bottom. I ask you to think about medical costs, and I ask you to think about our tax system writ large.
And Elizabeth Burrows is on deck. Elizabeth here somewhere? Okay. Yes.
Hi, my name is Francie Slater, and I am a Royalton resident, parent of 2 children here at the Royalton Elementary School, and I also work as the Farm to School coordinator in Bethel and Royalton Elementary Schools. And I had the pleasure of speaking with Senator Weeks over lunch today in the cafeteria here. We were serving local beef that was sourced by Roma's Butchery, a local business. That was the meat sauce on the spaghetti, and we noticed the children were relishing it and eating it wonderfully. And I just want to share the perspective that what happens in our school affects our wider community. And so as we think about changes to school structures, how is that rippling out to our communities? Elizabeth Roma is a small business owner. She worked really hard for several years to be able to be a vendor to our school district, to our SU, serving the 10 towns in the area. And once she was able to get all of the permitting in place and the equipment in place and the staff in place to be the vendor that provides all of the ground beef that our students eat here. This means that she has a business that's thriving. This means that she's supporting 23 additional small businesses, farmers in our districts who are sending their children to school, paying taxes here, doing the work that communities do to support our mutual thriving. And so I just wanted to share that perspective that, of course, what happens in the schools is really important, but what happens in the schools affects the community in so many ways. This is just one small, very small example of how our interrelated communities really depend upon each other to thrive and survive. And not to mention just the benefits for our students to know that the food that they're eating is from their own family farm or is from their parents' business or comes from the neighborhood that they grow up in, and what that means to be known and be seen and feel like you matter as a real person and not just an anonymous number in a huge pool. And as a parent, I do want to share, and also as a staff member, just to echo some previous statements, that Superintendent Konarny is incredibly present, available as a staff member. I get a response from him immediately, and I think that that support is really critical. And as was spoken before, those things don't scale in the same way that Elizabeth Roma couldn't scale. She couldn't serve 4,000 servings of meat sauce in her small local shop. And in order for us to scale to that level, were our schools to be to that size, we would really lose that local connection. And what does that mean for our state? What does that mean for our state of agriculturists and farmers and land-based businesses? I think there are really big questions that the committee should be looking at beyond the economics of our school budgets, but really thinking about how does this impact our economics as a state in a larger scale. Thank you.
And Rebecca Stone is on deck.
Hi.
We know you. How are you?
I am Elizabeth Burrows. I am primarily a parent. I'm also a school board member of Windsor Southeast Supervisory Union. I'm a resident of Brownsville, and I am a representative of the Windsor 1 district. And I want to thank you for taking the time today to hear this public. And I also really want to thank all of the people who came, because this is a tremendous amount of support for public education. So thank you. I don't really have anything structured to say, but I do want to say a couple of things. One is that I'd like to start with the fact that school boards actually predated select boards. It's true. It's true. They were the first entryway in early American rural communities. They were the first entryway into civic engagement, because rural schools were such a high priority for parents. It was a way for parents to be able to connect with each other and problem solve as community members. And that grew into further civic engagement and democracy in our states in their early formation, including in Vermont. And so I think it's really important to remember that, because that actually does apply today. Rural communities are all we've got. They're what we have. It's what actually makes Vermont great. And I've heard from a number of constituents who feel as though the small schools and in rural communities that we all love and support and have been talking about all afternoon are the backbones of communities, and that as such, the schools and the communities, and therefore the constituents and voters and taxpayers, are being taken for granted and overlooked. I would also like to add that I want to, since I don't have much time left, I want to give you a few things that I have heard from my constituents about Act 73. I've kept them informed every single step of the way because I am a school board member. They've known about H454 in its various iterations. I've attended every single meeting of all of the implementation task forces and commissions and advisory councils and whatnot. So I feel my constituents are pretty well informed. So they ask questions that are informed questions, and here are some that I cannot answer for them. Why is there no data showing fiscal benefits? Why is there no economic analysis on forced consolidation? Why are they asked to take a blind leap of faith? Why income-based funding is not being considered? Why we don't simply pass the funding formula and set a spending floor? Why leadership appears? Why education is treated like a business rather than the public good that it is? And why public schools are being starved while private and independent schools gain influence? This is a tactic called starving the beast, which is used often by private equity firms, in which they cut funding for businesses. The businesses start to falter, and then they blame the businesses that eventually close the businesses. That is not the way to treat a public good. Thank you.
And Eliza Minucci is on deck. Okay, anyway.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Stone. I'm a resident of Bethel, and I'll speak first as a parent. I have a 10th grader here. I believe you may have sat in on her English class and listened to her sing in the choir and listened to her play clarinet in the band, and now she's providing childcare for this event. I also have a 7th grader. That's a testament to her, but even more so to our small schools. They may not have every class offering that our big schools have, but they bend over backwards to give our kids the opportunities to be whole kids, to pursue these range of interests. If you'd shown up to a soccer game in the fall, you would have seen several of her teammates warm up with their team, rush over to the sidelines to sing the national anthem, and then go back and play a game. I am not convinced for a second that that would continue to happen in a larger consolidated school. There are so many opportunities we would lose. Just yesterday, a group of parents, many of whom are here today, our superintendent, our administrators, and principals, sat down. They joined us and spent an hour and a half meeting with a group here in this building because we had concerns and ideas and wanted to share them. I don't think for a second that would happen if our districts and supervisory unions consolidate. I don't think for a second many of us parents would be able to drive an hour to be at a meeting like that, to bring our kids to soccer every day and pick them up again, to attend their games. In addition to being a parent, I am also a community planner, a small business owner, and a community organizer and committee member in our town. And I want to speak to that as well. In addition to all the concerns you've heard from people about the impacts on our families, on our kids, on our schools, I want to talk about the impacts to our communities. If the numbers added up and we really did save money under these proposals, which I'm not convinced we would, I don't think we've included all of the other costs to our communities, to our towns, and to many of the other causes that matter here in Vermont. As a planner, I've worked with many state agencies and leaders on our climate action plan, on our creative sector action plan, on community development plans. Our climate action plan calls for less single vehicle car trips, not more, less driving, more staying close to home. We're working on healthcare issues all across the state, working to combat addiction, the mental health crises. Some of the best strategies for that are building social connections, helping people meet, connect, be active in their communities. Sending kids further away, hollowing out rural schools, or going to undermine those goals, not improve them. So many of us have chosen to move to these small communities because we value that life. And if we lose our rural schools, we're going to be losing that. As a community planner, I advise planning commissions, conservation commissions, energy committees that one of the very best ways they can get involved and get input and get business done is to go stand on the sidelines of those soccer games. If we lose our schools, we're going to lose that ability. I hope everyone here, in making these decisions, takes into account not just the test scores, not just the tax dollars, but all of these externalities, all the many, many benefits our small schools provide, and all the many hidden costs that are not currently factored into the math. Thank you.
And Stacy Peters is on deck.
Good afternoon. I'm Eliza Minucci, coming to you straight from Forest School at the First Branch Elementary School. I'm a resident of Tunbridge. My husband and I have 2 boys, 3rd and 5th graders in our First Branch Unified District schools. I'm an elementary school teacher in the First Branch District. I work for Antioch University, where I'm a senior adjunct professor of education, and I've been teaching graduate students there for 10 years. My husband and I have had choices about where to raise our kids, and what we have found in Tunbridge is a real village, a tight-knit, can-do community where it is the proud tradition to do for yourself and your neighbor. We can get milk right out of the tank within a couple miles of our house, thanks Gary. We can barter our maple syrup for beef, thanks Ian. We have an ice rink at our school that volunteers put up with a few drills, a sledgehammer, and elbow grease, thanks Seth. In Tunbridge, we have a volunteer-run food shelf, a volunteer program for helping folks with chores and rides to appointments. We have terrific public library programming. We have collaborative and active town committees. This place works. And you know what they say about Tunbridge? Somebody's gonna fill this in. It's not perfect, but pretty darn close. I want my kids to be immersed in this community where we all play many roles and make things happen for each other. I want them to go watch their neighbors play high school ball and sing in the musical and begin to imagine the choices headed their way. I want them to be nearby in high school themselves, still connected to the whole village of their youth, still helping build the ice rink on a cold Sunday in December. At our small community and in our elementary school of about 115 kids, this is happening right now. Our community and our school are working. We are taking care of our kids. We are teaching them to read, and we are teaching them to be good Tunbridge villagers. Don't break this. If you distance us from control and connection with our schools by layers of administration, by regionalized school boards, or forbid and by distance to get to our kids' schools, you will decrease the trust, communication, and goodwill that we show each other in town and in our dealings with school. Yes, plenty of places have bigger schools. They have more regionalized school boards. Let them. Here, we are raising civically minded, responsible Vermonters. Of course we vote to spend money on our kids. Of course it is expensive. Is there anyone who has raised a child who would claim to have raised them without spending right up to the edge of what they could? That's just human. When we set up government structures to avoid being human, what do we think we will achieve? It isn't wanting to keep our kids in small schools close to home. It isn't that's pushing us over the edge. What is pushing us over the edge financially is a broken health insurance system and a broken tax system. I implore you to fix what is broken. Don't break what is working so well. Don't break our rural communities and our small and strong schools where kids, some of whom facing really tough starts, are given a tight wraparound community that really knows and owns them. Don't break that. Fix what is actually broken by taxing me more. Just by chance, my family extracts more out of the economy than shows up in our little house and our rugged acres. It's not fair that we have a lower tax burden than the farmers down the road. From my perspective as an educator and a parent, do not consolidate our elementary schools. Do not set a minimum size for elementary schools. Do not consolidate our school boards. Our small rural elementary schools are not broken. Go find what is actually broken. It's probably not in your committee. Make them fix it. Tax us more fairly and let us all live like a good villager does, helping out our neighbors because we can.
Chris Jarvis is on deck.
Hi, I'm Stacy Peters. I live at Hancock. I'm the chair of the Granville-Hancock Unified District. We are way over in Addison County, but part of the White River Valley SU. I am here, as some of you may know, Granville and Hancock don't operate schools. We closed ours, making the difficult decision to do so several years ago when I had just moved into town. And I will tell you that a lot of this conversation has been precipitated on the idea that population has been in decline, and we have to respond to that. Our towns show you that closing schools does not help with population decline. Our closing schools exacerbates it. When I moved into Hancock, we had a bowl mill in Granville. We had a hardware store in Hancock. We had a plywood mill. We had a general store in Granville that we couldn't even sustain without a school. Our towns have more or less become employment deserts. The only way these towns survive is twofold. One, as part of the White River Valley SU, we have some local agency. If I'm hearing from parents as a school board chair about transportation issues, and there are a lot of transportation issues, please invite me to come testify on some of the transportation issues with sending kids over mountains on buses in the wintertime. It's a disaster. But people can talk to me, and I can go to the superintendent, and we can discuss it with receiving schools and figure out solutions. We can figure out solutions to give kids opportunities where they don't. We give them what we can, but it's tough and it's a struggle, and it only works because our small communities have people advocating for them who know them and who are their neighbors. We wouldn't have that under the governor's proposal. We would lose that by getting rid of the supervisory union structure, as I'm sure some of you have heard from others. And secondly, the only reason we survive is without a school, if you can't educate kids close to home, you need to be educating them in the same direction that parents are traveling for work. We live in an age of pandemics, of security measures that are too horrific as a parent to think about, and of just random illnesses and headaches. And you need to be able to come and get your kid after school without driving an hour and a half in the opposite direction you're traveling for work. Those towns would then not be the employment deserts they are today. They would be total deserts. Families cannot sustain that. Since I have a couple of seconds left, everyone else here has already cited lots of good research that I'm sure you've already heard. So I will leave you with some wisdom, regrettably, off of Reddit. I was doom scrolling the other night and reading a big long thread about Act 73 and its consequences, and someone made a great analogy that I would be remiss not to share, and that is the plan as it stands with the governor feels like going outside one morning, finding your car doesn't start, and deciding to change all of your tires. Thank you.
And on deck is Chelsea Gray. You're on.
Hello, I'm Chris Jarvis. I've been a Vermonter for 46 years. So I've grown up in this state. I've been schooled K through 12, and I went to Castleton State, graduated, and own a home, and have put 3 kids through school. I've also been on the select board in Bethel for 10 years. I was the chair on the select board for 8 years. I was on the school board for 2 years. So I've had some pretty good opportunities in our area to kind of examine and experience the school system. My opinion is through that time is that there is no one size fits approach to this. And I think we all can admit that there are small schools that definitely could merge with smaller schools. We do have a geographic challenge in Vermont with mountain ranges. And there are large schools that often are not managed well. And I think, from my time on the board, is it really comes down to a local responsibility level when it comes to putting together school systems. And, my time on the school board, in and around the COVID era is, the federal government was inducing our area with lots of revenue. And what did people do with that revenue? A majority of people went and took that revenue and started creating, new positions, new pieces to their school, and putting them on a track that it was not long-term sustainable. Our local government decided to use that money for one-time type fixes. What are things? Could we upgrade the boiler system in our school? So we smartly used our money rather than starting to just put a lot of pieces together that weren't going to be sustainable. I will say we are a product here of a school merger. And, Bethel and South Royalton, we merged our schools, 7, 8 years ago or so now. And I would say at the time, we did not see the benefits of the projections that we thought we were supposed to get in the first 5 years. But the past 2 years, where there has been, 14%, 17% increases out there, our school district has actually had savings. So again, I think, there are spots where consolidation makes a lot of sense. And I'll tell you that there's a lot of spots where there's big schools like Burlington that are really having a negative draw on the education system. So you can't all say we're going to be big like Burlington when a lot of the issues are Burlington. However, we can't all say we need a school if we have 50 kids. So there's definitely got to be a middle road approach on this. Thank you.
That was the last witness who has signed up, but we have, there's more. Okay. There's two more. We got one over here too. Come on. So we'll start with Paula Alou. I'm sorry, Pavla. I'm sorry. I thought it was Paula. It's Pavla. And then followed by Chris Frank.
I think you have one on deck.
Hello, I'm Chelsea Gray. I was cued for next.
Yeah, go.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm Chelsea Gray. I am a resident of Sharon. I am a lifelong Vermonter. I was born in Heartland. I attended Heartland Elementary School as a young person, K-8 school, in a neighboring district. I currently live in Sharon. My 2 children attend Sharon Elementary, and I'm an educator in a neighboring district. So I come with a unique perspective of being an educator who works in a rural school, who's attended a rural school in Vermont, and I have taught in several different schools of different sizes throughout Vermont in my teaching career, which spans 20 years. So I've taught in Burlington, taught in Winooski, and I've taught in Hartford. And my children currently attend Sharon, and I chose Sharon to raise my family there because of the school community and because of the school choice available to us as residents. The reason I've stayed rural is because of many of the reasons that other folks here have mentioned, the strong sense of community and local control, where I feel I can reach out to any member of my school board, the superintendent, the principal, teachers, anyone with whom I may raise issue, and know the people and trust the people who are involved in my school and my children's education. Thank you.
You are up. We'll get some. Okay, you've done it. You've got it.
My name is Pavel Blue, and I live in Norwich, right on the edge of New Hampshire. But so I think our communities right now is very strong. And if I had to drive, so right now I drive 37 minutes just to get to school. And I think if you made schools bigger, then I would have to drive maybe 50 minutes to get to school every morning, and I don't think that would be good for sleep. And so last year, for 2 years in a row, we've done bake sales. If we didn't have the community and support from our school, we couldn't have raised the money for the fire department, Leprechauns Day. There's so many things we couldn't have raised money for if we weren't a small community and didn't make those ideas. Last year, I somehow survived acting in a show. And right now, my sibling is, she's acting in a show, and she goes to Hanover High School, and she gets almost no sleep, and she has to take naps at school. So, and then sports. So this year, I moved at the start of the school year, and I play soccer. It's my favorite sport, and I play moose. That is now very, very far away, but somehow I'm still going to play moose, and games are so very far away now. And I think without a strong community, I think almost every game last year I had to carpool with somebody. So I think without a community that can stay stable, and if you join communities, I know it's going to get stronger, but if we keep on joining and making just a bigger school, I don't think it's going to work because there's so many people who need chances, and I think everybody can be seen and have their chances right now because everybody's getting considered and having their options for where to go, and it's important to keep it how it is because I think it could destroy so many things.
Thank you. So, Chris Frank was the next person.
Here he comes.
He's coming. Okay.
What's Moose? Soccer team.
Oh, it's the name of the soccer.
Yeah. Good. Hello, my name's Chris Fransky. I'm a resident of Montpelier, but I'm a 7th and 8th grade science teacher at Chelsea Public School. I'm here today representing the White River Valley Educators Association, representing Sharon, Stratford, South Royalton, Bethel, Rochester, and Stockbridge. Tunbridge, Chelsea. I'm like, yeah, Stockbridge. I'm nervous. Anyway, while we're all educators working with children of our towns, we're also community members, parents, and taxpayers. We know firsthand that property taxes are challenging, and we agree that a double-digit increase to our property taxes is not good for Vermont or the middle-class families who bear the brunt of these increases. We also know that Governor Scott's education reform demands will not address what he claims is an affordability crisis. In fact, his push for state-mandated consolidation often increases monetary demands on communities. We appreciate the work done by the Act 73 School Redistricting Task Force and agree with their executive summary that there could be volunteer mergers and also cooperative regional educational services. These recommendations allow for continued local decision-making control to determine if consolidation and/or sharing resources make sense for students and communities. We spend our working lives thinking about what's best for students. We teach them, care for them, and listen to them. We urge the Senate Education Committee to prioritize students just as we do every day. Thank you.
We have a few more minutes. If there's anybody else who'd like to. Michael?
My name is Michael Livingston. I'm a school board member in Sharon and a lifelong educator. And a thank you to all of you for showing up today. What an incredible turnout. It's so important. Thank you very much. My comment's brief, but I think it's important to recognize an underlining managerial decision that was made by Superintendent Canarney a number of years ago that really speaks to a lot of what you're hearing today. And that is that he has utilized and implemented a really highly functional distributed leadership model here at this school, in this system, that involves staff, faculty, administrators, and really allows people to be taking full responsibility and have a full, strong voice in the work that they're doing. So a lot of what you're hearing here today is a result of the work amongst faculty and staff and administrators who are fully committed and invested and have an authentic voice in decision-making at all levels in our program. And as you think about activities that we can implement statewide that make a difference in terms of being responsible and reflective to our communities, it's something to consider as well. So I applaud him, and I applaud also all the work of our faculty, staff, and administrators. I want to thank them for their incredibly hard work. Thank you very much.
Do any members want to make any final comments, or just you? Just me. So I think that wraps it up. Oh, one more.
I'm a very reluctant public speaker.
Name and town?
My name is Charlotte Facio, and I live in Stratford, Vermont. But I have worked within the school systems here. I've been a nurse for well over 40 years, and I've been a school nurse for, I think it was maybe 24 of those years. Retired 2 years ago from the First Branch School. I was a school nurse in Chelsea for many years with all the changes and losing the high school. My two children were educated at the Newton School, and then they went on to we had school choice. They went on to the Sharon Academy. I believe they got a really excellent education throughout all their schooling. What I want to add to today as a school nurse is, within the school as a school nurse, we treat and help manage all children. But a lot of our responsibilities fall towards the children of need and the families of need. And a lot of my job was focused towards them, between the meals and the food that we provide for those families, trying to provide them resources. I believe strongly that by consolidating districts further, we harm those children and those families further. And I just wanted to really stress that point. We saw harm to families when we merged Chelsea and Tunbridge, and it took a long time to improve that system, and I believe that the First Branch has done an excellent job with that. But making the drives longer, the families of need are not going to be able to provide for their children, as well as making it harder for other families. Thank you. Appreciate the time.
Thank you so much, Superintendent Canardi, and all the staff here at the school. Oh, there you are. And the students for really making us feel welcome. I think we felt that at every school we've gone to, and we definitely felt it here today. And thank you for all you do. I think we all feel that strongly. We all feel that deeply. And thanks to everybody here for coming out. It really matters a lot for us to hear from you in a way that we don't always get a chance to. So these 5 hearings, I guess this is our last one, so have made deep impressions, each school, and collectively a deep impression on the committee about where Vermonters are, the things that are important, the depth of their caring for students, and the depth of the caring about their communities and making the connections. And so I think this will help inform the deep thinking that this committee and the entire legislature has to do over the next several months. We can't thank everybody here and everybody we've interacted with today enough. By the way, it's been fun having lunch with all the kids each time we've done it. And it was fun today. We had spaghetti with the kids, so it was fun. Thank you all. And I think with that, we are adjourned. Okay, thanks.